Chapter 363. Doomsday in Daqin Prefecture. Into the top three? Yining Chong was in disbelief. Wasn't Qin Hao being too arrogant? Even if there were 100 Lin Fangs, he wouldn't dare to be so arrogant. She said tactfully, "Little brother, it's better to keep a low profile." Keep a low profile? Qin Hao was a little helpless. I'm already keeping a low profile. He didn't refute. He knew that the Rising Star competition gathered the top disciples of the 4 great academies. It was normal that Qin Hao wasn't favored by the 9-star Yuan school. Boss, why aren't you going over? Lin Feng has been waiting for you for a long time. The others are saying that you're putting on airs. Some people are saying that you're scared and don't dare to fight. At this moment, Yi Shuahan's voice came from afar. Qin Hao and Yining Chong turned to look. The other party had already rushed over with his pants up. Yining Chong couldn't help but frown. "Greetings, Elder Yun." Yi Shuahan bowed to Yining Chong for the first time. His attitude was very respectful. Bayan Peak was Elder Yun's peak. Outsiders couldn't get close, let alone step in. Yi Shuahan had broken the rules in order to inform Qin Hao about the battle with Lin Feng. But he didn't care. If Yining Chong wasn't Boss's sister, he wouldn't even be bothered to bow. On the other hand, Yining Chong was the same. If it were any other disciple who barged into Bayan Peak, she would definitely slap them. Yi Shuahan and Qin Hao's relationship wasn't shallow. He nodded slightly and endured it. "I was too rude. Let's go and fight." Qin Hao raised his hand. The upgraded purple meteorite sword turned into a white light and flew back. He carried the sword and went down the mountain with Yi Shuahan. 3 days ago, he received Lin Feng's challenge letter. Although it was a letter of challenge, the written language did not have the slightest intention of underestimating Qin Hao. It showed Lin Feng's upright character. Qin Hao had once heard that the eldest senior brother of the outer court, Lin Feng, was a rare genius in the sword Dao, and his sword skills were extremely admirable. Thus, he agreed to fight with the other party. After all, he had an agreement with Ouyang Hong. Before participating in the Rising Star competition, the first step was for Qin Hao to become the real number 1 in the outer court. He could also use this opportunity to temper his 100 steps flying sword. If Lin Feng knew that Qin Hao was using him, the number 1 student in the outer court, to practice, he would definitely feel very uncomfortable. The reason why he took the initiative to challenge Qin Hao was that the rumors in the outer yard had been spreading too fiercely recently. His junior brothers were all comparing him with Qin Hao, discussing who was the real number 1 in the outer yard. In fact, Lin Feng had already guessed this in advance after the battle between Qin Hao and Lao Yuanliang. It was better to take the initiative to make an appointment with Qin Hao. It was better than letting Qin Hao come to his door and slap him in the face. In this way, even if he lost, he would lose with dignity. Moreover, Lin Feng did not think that he would necessarily lose, because his blade storm was already thirsty for it. Thus, he made an agreement with Qin Hao to determine the winner in one move. Be careful, Lin Feng is a 3-star mortal saint, and he has also activated the Sword Realm. His Sword Realm is called Blade Storm. It's very difficult to deal with. You must not compare him with Lao Yuanliang. 10 Lao Yuanliangs can't even compare to one of Lin Feng's fingers. Yining Chong reminded him seriously. In response, Qin Hao smiled faintly, turned around, and said, "Sister, you can watch the battle in the dark. It's also good to see if I have the ability to enter the top 3 in the Rising Star competition." After saying that, he disappeared halfway up the mountain with Yi Shuahan. At this moment, thousands of miles away from the Luo Shui Empire. But an earth-shattering event happened. Jiang Kingdom, Tianwei City. The city was 5 zhang tall, and the soldiers and horses in the city were strong. The city crawled between the mountains like a sleeping giant beast. Tianwei City's geographical location was extremely good. It was blocked outside the canyon entrance to Beiwu Kingdom. One man could hold off 10,000 men, and it was very easy to defend and difficult to attack. This city originally did not belong to Jiang Kingdom. It was a city that Qin Hao won from a bet with the Emperor of Beiwu Kingdom a few months ago. Fortunately, it was now under Jiang Huang's jurisdiction. Qin Hao used it and 20 other cities to exchange for the 6 southern cities of Jiang Kingdom. Unfortunately, after tonight, Tianwei City would never belong to Jiang Kingdom. And Jiang Kingdom would also become a speck of dust in the long river of history, annihilated forever. As the sun set in the west, the sky gradually darkened. The soldiers guarding the city walls returned to the camp in groups to eat. During this period, Tianwei City's defense was at its weakest. After all, Jiang Kingdom was now a big country, even more powerful than Beiwu Kingdom in the past. Moreover, the two countries had already formed an alliance and would not invade each other. The soldiers felt that there was no war to fight, so they did not care about their military career at all. In their words, they were just idling away their days. But suddenly, dozens of black shadows quickly passed through the canyon under the cover of the sky. Their nimble movements even deceived the soldiers guarding the city walls. It was obvious that these people were not weak. In an instant, their backs were pressed against the wall. Then, dozens of chains rose into the air at the same time, hooking onto the top of the city walls. These assassins in black became the world's most terrifying nightmare. They climbed up and killed the few soldiers guarding the city walls as if they were killing chickens. Creak! The heavy city gates were opened by the assassins. At this moment, the ground in front of Tianwei City began to tremble violently, as if thousands of soldiers and horses were charging. Looking down from the sky, one could see a torrent of armored soldiers rushing towards the city gates along the canyon. Assassins, there are assassins. Enemy attack. Who opened the city gates? Prepare for battle. The guards on the city walls were finally in chaos, shouting one after another. But at the same time, flames that soared into the sky began to ignite in the city. In all directions, there were flames everywhere. Then, the cavalry from the canyon also rushed into the city, killing a bloody massacre. Jiang Kingdom soldiers were caught off guard and did not have the chance to react. When they wanted to counterattack, they unexpectedly found that there was not even a single officer by their side. They only heard the new batch of girls had arrived in the city today. Those generals all brought a beautiful girl back home to have fun in advance. City Lord's Mansion. This was the general's mansion with the highest authority in Tianwei City. The general guarding it was Jiang Kingdom's former general, Ying Tianlong. At this moment, Ying Tianlong, who was supposed to be commanding the soldiers in battle, died on his bed with his clothes disheveled. In his chest, there were 2 daggers. The daggers were shining with a green light, obviously dipped in poison. The green, poisonous blood flowed along the bed sheets. "Sister, this person is dead. Let's go back and report." In the room, a woman said. The woman was very beautiful. She was wearing a thin gauze, and her graceful body was faintly visible. Her curvaceous body was as tender as water, very seductive. Her clothes were also disheveled, and her body was sweating profusely. The sweat on her body was glossy. It was obvious that she had just had sex with a man. However, her face was frighteningly cold, and her hands were stained with blood. "Let's go," a woman next to her said, pulling her sister away. However, when the 2 women walked, their legs were limping, and their faces were filled with pain. They must have just had their melons broken, and they took advantage of Ying Tianlong's most comfortable time to kill him in one blow. Not only Ying Tianlong, but all the generals of Jiang Kingdom in the city had also died on their beds. Their deaths directly caused the soldiers to be leaderless, and the troops fighting outside were defeated. Tianwei City had also ushered in the end of the city. Kill them. In the city, a black-faced general was charging back and forth on a warhorse. Everywhere he passed, there was a foul wind and a rain of blood. His body emitted green yuan qi, and no one in Jiang Kingdom's army was a match for him. Jiang Kingdom was a small kingdom, and there were no origin sect experts, and he was not a general of Tianwu Kingdom. Chapter 364. Translator, Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo Studio Chin Hao vs. Lin Feng. Half a month ago, the Yuan family received shocking news. Yuan Huai, the #1 genius of the family and the only grandson of the Grand Duke, died at Qiyang University. Yuan Huai was the only heir of the family, and this feud was irreconcilable. After a secret investigation, they found out that he died at the hands of Qin Hao. Qin Hao was originally from the Jiang Kingdom. The Grand Duke was furious, but Qin Hao was currently in the imperial city of Luoshui, and he couldn't touch him at all. Therefore, he ordered the border troops of the Tianlong Kingdom to form an expeditionary force to attack the Jiang Kingdom, vowing to kill Qin Hao and his family. Destroy the Qin family first, then find a chance to get rid of Qin Hao. The Yuan family's army was extremely efficient, and within half a month, they rushed to the Jiang Kingdom's Tianwei city. Along the way, the Beiwu Kingdom, Fengyue Kingdom, and the Valiant Battle Kingdom all opened the city gates and let them pass. The three kingdoms even took the initiative to form an alliance with the Tianlong Kingdom, preparing to destroy the Jiang Kingdom together and divide its territory. Half of the Jiang Kingdom's land actually belonged to them. They felt that their chance for revenge had come. Poor Jiang Wang, an innocent victim. His kingdom is going to be destroyed. In front of the Tianwei city, the Beiwu Kingdom's emperor, Wu Yingxiong, said as he rode on a war horse, gloating. Behind him, the Beiwu Kingdom's army was aggressive, waiting for action, and arranged in a neat square formation. In addition, the Fengyue Kingdom's army in green armor and the Valiant Battle Kingdom's army in black armor also responded from afar. The three armies stood in front of the Tianwei city, and there were no less than 1 million of them. Including Yuan Lang, who led the army to fight in the city, the alliance's army was as high as 2 million. This Tianwei city, which only had 100,000 soldiers, could be destroyed with a flick of the finger. Wu Yingxiong's words made the emperor of the Fengyue Kingdom and the emperor of the Valiant Battle Kingdom nod repeatedly. The Jiang Kingdom's destruction was an indisputable fact. At this moment, they all felt that Qin Hao was very smart and had a lot of strategic sense. 20 big cities in exchange for 6 small cities in the south of Jiang country. Unknowingly, the Jiang country had become Qin Hao's protective umbrella, hindering the progress of the alliance army and preventing the Yuan family from taking revenge on Daqing Prefecture. Even though they were enemies now, the emperors of the three kingdoms still praised Qin Hao from the bottom of their hearts. However, Jiang Wang was the unlucky one. But who could he blame? He blamed himself for being too greedy. Destroying the Jiang Kingdom is just a matter of convenience. Daqing Prefecture will be finished in the end. At this time, Yuan Lang rode a tall black horse and slowly came over. His whole body was soaked in blood, and the blood on his sword was still flowing. His face was extremely ferocious. "Greetings, General Yuan." Seeing this, Wu Yingxiong and the other 2 emperors quickly dismounted and bowed. Their emperor bowed to a general of the Yuan family. They didn't think it was inappropriate. The Tianlong country was the most powerful country outside of the 3 empires in Xiliang, and it was about to become the 4th empire. The Yuan family was second to none in the Tianlong country and was comparable to the royal family. Not to mention destroying the Jiang country, it would be easy for them to destroy the 3 empires together. No need for formalities. Yuan Lang waved his hand and sat on the back of his horse. He glanced at the city and saw that the battle was over. The corner of his mouth curled up into a mocking smile. This small place has no opponents. Even a small deputy general like me can't stop them. I would like to see how the Daqing Prefecture is going to resist our follow-up troops. His words made Wu Yingxiong and the other 2 gasp. Yuan Lang was a Grandmaster-level expert, but he was only a deputy general of the Yuan family. The 200,000-strong expeditionary army he led was merely the vanguard. At this moment, endless fear spread from the bottom of their hearts. The Yuan family was indeed worthy of being the army of the Tianlong country. The Daqing Prefecture was doomed. "General Yuan, how many troops are behind you, and who is the general?" Wu Yingxiong asked carefully in a respectful tone. Yuan Lang smiled coldly and stretched out 5 fingers. 5 million. The general is the head of our family, Patriarch Yuan Tutian, who is also the father of my nephew. "Huh? The 3 gasped again. 5 million? Oh my God. The combined forces of the 3 empires were far less than that. Even if the Jiang Kingdom was included, they would not be able to compete with 5 million. However, Yuan Lang said that the 5 million troops seemed to be very casual. Moreover, the one leading the team this time was actually the leader of the Yuan family, Yuan Huai's father. Yuan Lang was already so powerful. How powerful was Yuan Huai's father? Yuan Lang seemed to have seen through the doubts in their hearts, so he said indifferently, "Oh, I forgot to remind you. Our family head is a saint-level master. When you 3 local emperors kneel before our family head, you must be discerning. Don't make him unhappy. Otherwise, I can't guarantee that the next country to be destroyed won't be you." Boom! It was as if the 3 of them were struck by lightning. They were so scared that they fell on their butts and sat on the ground, their faces pale. A sage-level expert? The Yuan family had actually sent a sage-level expert to massacre the Daqin prefecture. Qin Hao really had no one else. He could have offended anyone, but he had to kill the only heir of the Yuan family. Even an immortal couldn't save him. Yuan Lang, a Grandmaster-level expert, was already invincible. If a sage-level expert attacked, the world would definitely collapse. The Daqin prefecture was doomed. Wu Yingxiong and the other 2 had no doubt that the Qin family would be destroyed in less than 7 days. This was because Tianwei City was the gateway to Jiang country, and the people guarding it were also the most elite forces of Jiang country. Now that the city had been destroyed, the Alliance army would be unimpeded. It wouldn't be long before they swept through the entire Jiang country and attacked the 6 southern city gates. Even if Qin Hao heard the news of his family's destruction and rushed over, he would probably cry at the sight of the corpses on the ground. "Haha, drunkard, Chun King, it's time for us to settle the score." Wu Yingxiong laughed sinisterly. He wanted to see how Chun King, a Grandmaster-level expert, could resist Yuan Huai's father, a sage-level expert. Qian University, outer courtyard. At the top of 2 tall buildings, 2 figures stood facing the wind. At this moment, the sun was setting, and the afterglow elongated the shadows of the 2 figures. They looked very mighty. One of them was Qin Hao, and the other was the number 1 on the terrestrial leaderboard, Sword Saint Lin Feng. The 2 of them stood and looked at each other. Although it was not as spectacular as the scene of thousands of soldiers fighting, their momentum was far greater than that of millions of soldiers. That feeling of nervousness to the point of suffocation caused the dense mass of disciples below to break out in cold sweat. In the next second, only one of the 2 figures was left standing. At this moment, Qin Hao still didn't know that Tianwei City had been destroyed. He also didn't know that the Qin family and the Fengli Temple would be facing an army of 6 million led by a sage-level expert. "You are my junior brother, so I'll let you make the first move. Come on, let's decide the winner and the number 1 of the outer courtyard in 1 move." Lin Feng said calmly as he looked at Qin Hao with admiration. Qin Hao was a respectable and terrifying opponent. He stood there without any flaws. He was also the only one who could remain calm when facing Sword Saint Lin Feng. Chapter 365. Victory and defeat have been decided within the purple scabbard. A CC sound could be heard. The shining blade was gradually pulled out, emitting a cold light. "I was late first, and I'm a junior. Senior should make the first move." To this, Qin Hao smiled faintly, feeling a trace of goodwill. With a flash of his hand, the purple meteorite sword appeared in his palm, shining like the moonlight, exceptionally dazzling. Compared to Lin Feng's weapon, the upgraded purple meteorite sword was not only much better, but also much better. At least at this moment, the crowd below was filled with praises. "Good sword. Didn't Qin Hao use a blood sword before?" Lao Yunyang's spearhead was smelted by Qin Hao. Everyone knows this. The spearhead itself is a high-grade weapon. Qin Hao's sword should at least be a high-grade weapon. However, he is not Lin Feng's opponent. The disciples whispered to each other, pointing at Qin Hao on the rooftop. Sword Saint Lin Feng was a legend in the outer courtyard. It was already deeply ingrained in their hearts, as if it was a matter of course. Even if Qin Hao defeated the Spear Saint, he was not a match for the Sword Saint. "Boss, this battle is a bit difficult. Yi Shuihan listened to the discussion and could not help but worry. From his bearing, he could already see that Lin Feng was not ordinary, far from Lao Yunliang's arrogance. Moreover, Lin Feng was not only one realm higher than Qin Hao, but also 3 stars higher. Qin Hao letting Lin Feng make the first move was a bit of contempt for the opponent. At least the other disciples thought so. However, Lin Feng did not take it to heart. He knew that Qin Hao was doing it out of respect, and he also had the strength. He smiled. Junior brother is so bold. Let's make a move at the same time. No one will benefit. No one will lose. We'll do as senior apprentice brother Lin Feng says. The smile on Qin Hao's face disappeared after he finished speaking. He concentrated all of his yuan qi and gathered it in his right palm. His palm flashed with a blue light, causing the purple meteorite sword to shine brightly. Junior apprentice brother, be careful. This move of mine is called Blade Storm. It carries the Tao of the sword realm. In terms of power, it is 50 times stronger than Lord Kongshan's. Lin Feng was also extremely cautious. He didn't dare to be careless when facing Qin Hao. He focused his energy and activated his intrinsic sword intent, condensing it on the 3-foot-long blade. At this moment, his body vibrated with orange yuan qi, and a strong wind blew around him. The wind grew stronger and stronger, and his aura became stronger and stronger. In the end, a turbulent storm began to revolve around Lin Feng, and ding-ding-dang-dang sound could be heard from the storm. The sharp-eyed disciples noticed that there were tens of thousands of sword shadows within the storm, causing the entire building to shake. What a powerful aura! As expected of our Outer Yards #1, to be able to see senior brother Lin Feng in action, I have no regrets in this life. He's really strong. Yi Shuihan couldn't stand steadily on the ground. Even from afar, he could still feel the strong wind in the sky piercing his face. He felt the pain of a cut on his face, and he subconsciously took a few steps back. 3-star mortal saint? And it's not just any ordinary 3-star mortal saint. The strength of his sword intent is something that even 100 Lord Kongshan can't compare to. Qin Hao exclaimed. As he spoke, his aura suddenly increased. It was like a volcano erupting into the sky from where he stood. The scorching air waves also caused the disciples below to retreat with fear. Blazing Sword Realm? Lin Feng was stunned, and then the corner of his mouth curled up. A 9-star Origin Master's aura isn't inferior to mine at all. Junior apprentice brother, you're really extraordinarily strong. Let's see if your Blazing Sword Realm or my Blade Storm is stronger. Go, said Lin Feng, while raising his sword above his head. In a flash, the wind around his body became even more violent. It expanded to 100 meters. Lin Feng abruptly raised his sword, and the wind bombarded Qin Hao. Inside the wind, there were 10,000 sword shadows. With this attack, the entire sky of the outer yard dimmed, as though it was the end of the world. It was as though everything in the world was ants, and only that storm was left. It was like a giant roaring endlessly. Wherever it passed, tiles and stone slabs would fly and be crushed into pieces. Qin Hao's figure seemed insignificant in front of that storm. Blazing Sword Realm? No. I won't use the Sword Realm today. When the storm came, Qin Hao pushed his right palm forward with all his might. A monstrous force hit the tail of the sword, and the purple meteorite sword turned into a ray of moonlight and pierced through. This scene was extremely shocking. In the eyes of the other disciples, Qin Hao's attack was too weak. It was like an egg hitting a rock when it collided with the 100-meter storm. Lin Feng was also in a daze. Qin Hao actually didn't use the Blazing Sword Realm when fighting with him. Was he seeking death? Thinking of this, Lin Feng was already regretting it. He believed that Qin Hao would die without a doubt, and that his junior brother was using his life to fulfill his immortal legend. Sai, my attack was too heavy. I should have only used half of my strength. Once the storm was unleashed, there was no room for it to be retracted. Lin Feng wanted to help, but there was nothing he could do. He only hoped that Qin Hao would be lucky enough to escape. Although it seemed impossible, he really didn't want Qin Hao to die. But suddenly, the purple meteorite sword that Qin Hao sent flying suddenly expanded, expanding into a 10-meter-long giant sword, and even more powerful lightning wrapped around the sword. Chi-Chi. It entered the giant storm. This scene happened too quickly, and everyone thought they were seeing things. What kind of move was this? Lin Feng was also very puzzled. His puzzlement immediately turned into fear. He could clearly feel that Qin Hao's flying sword was gradually piercing through the sword storm. His storm was actually unable to withstand it. This is impossible. The sword storm was triggered by my holy power, and it has the attributes of both wind and sword. It can't withstand Qin Hao's flying sword. I'm King hallucinating. Lin Feng thought that the sword storm should have shattered Qin Hao's attack. He frantically rubbed his eyes and looked again. He saw a flash of light coming out of the storm, and in the blink of an eye, it was already in front of him. This was a giant sword. In front of this giant sword, Lin Feng was as small as an ant. He also heard the call of the Grim Reaper. But Qin Hao's sword did not take Lin Feng's life. Instead, it stopped in front of him, and then the giant sword dissipated into a flash of moonlight and disappeared. Qin Hao stopped, but Lin Feng did not. Although the sword storm was penetrated, it did not slow down and crashed into the tall building that Qin Hao was standing on. Suddenly, the tall building was smashed into pieces. Broken bricks, tiles, and wood flew all over the sky. Everything was smashed into smithereens by the storm. Qin Hao also retreated in time. Under the fierce storm, he staggered a few steps back after landing on the ground before he could barely stop himself. It was obvious that Lin Feng's attack power was indeed extraordinary. F***CK. What's going on? The disciples stared at each other. At this time, the storm stopped, the tall building disappeared, and a huge pit appeared on the ground. Qin Hao was also forced to retreat to the ground by the storm. It seems Qin Hao lost. A disciple said foolishly, "Ha, I knew it. How could senior brother Lin Feng lose? 10 Qin Haos can't even defeat a finger of senior brother Lin Feng. The number 1 on the Earth leaderboard is not someone Qin Hao can challenge. Let's go. Qin Hao, that freak, has finally been subdued by senior brother Lin Feng." The disciples put their arms around each other's shoulders and left the scene. Between their words, there was disappointment and pride. Disappointment because Qin Hao actually lost. Pride because Qin Hao finally lost. It turned out that he also had times when he lost. The outcome has been decided. Thank you, senior brother, for showing mercy. Qin Hao smiled faintly. He saluted Lin Feng, who was standing high on the roof, and turned to leave. Junior brother, please wait. Chapter 366. New Star Competition. The others also stopped in their tracks, looking confused. Qin Hao had lost, so why did senior brother Lin Feng stop him? Could it be that he was trying to counsel him? That must be it. In the eyes of others, Lin Feng would definitely walk in front of Qin Hao in the next second, pat his shoulder kindly, and say some encouraging words to encourage him not to be discouraged. Qin Hao's spirit was commendable to be able to fight his way to the top of the Earth leaderboard. Now that he had suffered a setback, his confidence must have taken a hit. As expected of senior brother Lin Feng, his character is noble, and he's our role model. The disciples were full of admiration for Lin Feng's character. Senior brothers, you're all wrong. The one who lost is me. Lin Feng gritted his teeth and struggled to speak while pointing at his forehead. There was a thumb-sized spot on his forehead. It was extremely red, and there were even traces of blood flowing out. If Qin Hao had not stopped in time, Lin Feng's head would have been pierced. The one who had shown mercy was Qin Hao. The disciples below were all dumbfounded and could not believe it. However, the truth was that the one who lost was indeed Lin Feng. Junior brother's flying sword can be controlled freely. With Sky Origin strength, you defeated me, a 3-star mortal saint. I, Lin Feng, admit defeat. From today onwards, the number 1 person in the outer court is Qin Hao. After struggling for a while, Lin Feng felt relieved. He smiled and floated down from the roof to Qin Hao's side, raising his arm above his head. This also indicated that from today onwards, Lin Feng's first place on the Earth leaderboard would be second. Qin Hao was undoubtedly the #1 person in the outer court. Senior brother's swordsmanship is strong, and I admire it very much. It's not about who wins or loses. There's no end to martial arts. Senior brother might be stronger than me in the future. Don't be discouraged because of this. Qin Hao admired Lin Feng's character. He patted his shoulder to comfort him. Crack. The surrounding disciples were all blinded. This. Qin Hao won again. He even patted eldest senior brother's shoulder and comforted him not to be discouraged. It was actually the other way around. Moreover, eldest senior brother looked as if he had learned something. In an instant, hundreds of spectators fainted. No one could stop Qin Hao's footsteps anymore. He had really become the strongest person in the outer yard. Ha ha! Stinking brat. In the distance, at the top of the medicine tower, Yao Lao laughed heartily. His turbid eyes shot out a sharp light, as if he had recovered his youthful vigor. He was deeply attracted by Qin Hao's words. There is no end to martial arts. No one can guarantee who will be stronger in the future. Eldest senior brother, this kid's achievements today are inseparable from your silent promotion behind the scenes. Unknowingly, Ouyang Hong was standing beside Yao Lao, watching the entire battle between Qin Hao and Lin Feng. Humph! Yao Lao couldn't be bothered with him and slowly walked down. Ouyang Hong had an awkward look. He chased after him and smiled apologetically. The pavilion master wants you to come out of seclusion. Why would a dignified king-level alchemist stay in the medicine tower? Several decades have passed. Is it worth it for you to stay in the outer yard for that joke back then? Do you have nothing better to do than to meddle in other people's business? You'd better take care of yourself. If you can't get first place in the 4 Great Academies' new star competition the day after tomorrow, don't come back to see me, Yao Lao said coldly. When the past was mentioned, his heart couldn't help but ache. His figure flashed and disappeared in front of Ouyang Hong. Sigh. Ouyang Hong sighed. Eldest senior brother was invincible back then. His sharpness wasn't inferior to the present Qin Hao. But for a girl, he stayed in the medicine tower to fulfill that ridiculous promise. He kept his promise and waited for 40 years. He waited until his black hair turned white, and he went from a young lad to an old man. But what about that girl? She probably got married long ago. Ouyang Hong deeply felt that it wasn't worth it for Yao Lao. Eldest senior brother was so valiant back then. His future achievements were limitless. Thinking of this, Ouyang Hong looked at Qin Hao strangely. Eldest senior brother must have seen the shadow of himself in Qin Hao, so he found an excuse to give him benefits in private. It was obvious that eldest senior brother was still very unwilling. After all, he was someone who had the potential to become a venerable rel powerhouse. But this Qin Hao was indeed a good seedling. The honor and disgrace of Qiyang University depended on him the day after tomorrow. In the distance, Yuning Chong also nodded silently. Her eyes were full of excitement as she looked at Qin Hao. Qin Hao had once again created a miracle. What an unfathomable fellow. Yuning Chong smiled. Her smile was very sweet. She was full of confidence in Qin Hao's participation in the New Star competition. The battle between Qin Hao and Lin Feng completely caused a sensation in the outer courtyard. From a disciple who was bullied and not recognized by others, he jumped to the top of the Earth leaderboard and created a new legend. The disciples also started a frenzy of admiration. This craze didn't last long because the New Star competition had already begun. Next, Dean Ouyang Hong led Qin Hao and the top 10 disciples of the Earth leaderboard to the Luo Shui stage. The Luo Shui stage was at the center of the Imperial City, facing the Imperial Palace. Although it was a competition between the outer courtyard of the 4 Great Academies, it was very sacred. The outer courtyard disciples were the youngest. They were the flowers of the Luo Shui Empire and shouldered the future and hope of the Luo Shui Empire. The Imperial Palace attached great importance to this. It was said that after the competition, the Emperor of the Dragon Abyss might appear to award the champion. This was a lifelong honor. Qin Hao's team had 10 people, including Lin Feng. Although Yi Shuihan and Nalen Li weren't on the Earth leaderboard, they still went. Qin Hao said that he would introduce a few new friends to them. Moreover, Nailan Li and Yi Shuihan also wanted to participate in the competition. In addition to the 10 predetermined spots, there was also a special passage for the New Star competition. It was specially set up by the Imperial Palace for commoners and hermits. Nailan Li and Yi Shuihan wanted to use this passage to see what ranking they could achieve. Of course, they didn't have any hopes of becoming the champion. The champion would only be the #1 disciple of the 4 great academies. Those people were geniuses among geniuses, monsters among monsters. Each of them had extraordinary physiques and monstrous strength. They set off from Qiyang University on a medium-sized jade boat and roamed in the sky. The imperial city of Luoshui was very large. The Luoshui stage was tens of thousands of miles away from Qiyang University. This jade boat was dozens of times bigger and faster than the boat that Yining Chong used to pick up Qin Hao. It was a high-grade flying artifact. In less than half a day, they would arrive at the Luoshui stage. Oh my God, it's really fast. Look at the mountains below. They look like ants. The Dean's jade boat is probably as fast as the King's stage. Of course, the jade boat is not only expensive to build, but it also consumes a shocking amount of mysterious crystals. The disciples discussed animatedly on the deck. It was their first time flying at such a high altitude. It was normal for them to be excited. Even Lin Feng, Ma Rulong, and Lao Yuanliang were in a daze. It was really too fast. Only Qin Hao maintained a calm expression from beginning to end. In his previous life, Qin Hao's Dragon Emperor battleship could travel through the void. However, when he came out, Lao Yuanliang hurriedly shrank back. His eyes were full of fear. He still couldn't shake off the shadow of being cut down by Qin Hao. Moreover, even Lin Feng was defeated by him. Junior brother, you must pay attention to a few people. Wang Gui from the Shifeng Academy, Tian Boguang from the Xingyue Academy, and Long Fun and Xiaohua from the Mad Dragon Academy. At this moment, Lin Feng walked to Qin Hao's side. His face was unusually serious. As the former #1 expert of the Qiyang Academy, Lin Feng naturally knew the strength of the strongest geniuses of the other 3 academies. They all have special bloodlines and can transform. After transforming, their combat power is unimaginably strong. It's very dangerous to fight them. If you're not careful, you may lose your life. If you're unlucky enough to meet them, it's better if you admit defeat in advance. Lin Feng felt powerless. In fact, he was under a lot of pressure because he was the #1 on the Earth ranking. He had to win glory for his academy. Chapter 367. Origin Spirit, however, the pressure on him didn't lessen at all. He was filled with fear towards the people he mentioned. According to his previous thoughts, if he didn't meet them, he still had a chance to enter the top 10. Once he met them, he would immediately admit defeat. That was why he reminded Qin Hao, "I'll try my best." Qin Hao chuckled. "It's good to try your best, but don't force yourself." Ouyang Hong, in a purple robe, walked out of the cabin with his hands behind his back. "Greetings, Dean." Everyone quickly saluted. And Ouyang Hong responded indifferently. His gaze fell on Qin Hao. He pointed at Qin Hao's nose and said, "You stinking brat, don't think that you can be arrogant just because you're the #1 in the outer courtyard." To be frank, even 10 Lin Fangs might not be Wang Gui's opponent, not to mention Long Fun and Tian Boguang, who are stronger than Wang Gui. But if you meet Xiaohua, you could try. Wang Gui and the others had special bloodlines. Qin Hao would die if he met any of them. The other disciples all sucked in cold air when they heard this. They lamented that they were short-sighted. They thought that Lin Feng was strong enough, but they didn't expect that he might not even be able to take one move. If Qin Hao fought with Wang Gui and Long Fun, it was no different from seeking death. What made everyone puzzled was why the dean said to let him fight with Xiaohua. In fact, Lin Feng also couldn't figure it out. Although Xiaohua's strength was slightly weaker than the others, it wasn't that weak. Lin Feng found out that once Xiaohua was enraged, he could become 4 to 5 meters tall. At that time, his defense would explode, and his strength would be boundless. He could smash people into meat paste with one punch. He was as ferocious as a bull demon. What was even rarer was that he was a new student like Qin Hao. Xiaoguo was currently ranked second in the Quanglong Academy, slightly weaker than Long Fun. Qin Hao had no chance of winning against Xiaoguo. Didn't the dean want Qin Hao to die? Qin Hao was overjoyed. They hadn't seen each other for a few months, and the Melon brothers were already so tired of each other. In fact, Lin Feng and the others did not know that Xiaoguo was Qin Hao's follower. Of course, if they knew, their eyeballs would definitely fall out. Junior brother, you must remember my words. This battle is really dangerous. Lin Feng advised again. All right, I'll be careful, Qin Hao replied, but the expression on his face was completely different. Immediately, he was met with a wave of disdain from the others. It seemed that Qin Hao was really prepared to court death, especially Lao Yuanliang. He suddenly felt very happy in his heart. He couldn't wait for Qin Hao to die on that Luo Shui stage. It's enough as long as you enter the top 10. Don't try to be brave and lose your life. I know you really want to go to the Medicine Valley. As long as you enter the top 10, I'll nominate you to the Inner Yard and let you enter the Medicine Valley with the disciples of the Inner Yard a year later. Ouyang Hong exhorted. His tone was authoritative and irrefutable. This was all a reward for Qin Hao's participation. As the Dean of the Outer Yard, Ouyang Hong had a rather high position in the upper echelons of Qiyang. He was even higher than the elders of the Inner Yard. Therefore, he had the right to nominate him to the Inner Yard. However, whether or not Qin Hao had the ability to enter the Medicine Valley by then was another matter. Thank you, Dean. I'll fight this battle carefully. If I can't win, I'll admit defeat. Qin Hao bowed slightly and returned to his cabin. The cabin was used for resting. Although it was not big, everyone had one. As for the if I can't win, sorry, that was impossible. Shameless boasting. Do you really think you're invincible? You'll be beaten to death sooner or later. I think you just have a dead face. Lao Yuanliang mocked Qin Hao's back. The more he saw Qin Hao's noble and virtuous appearance, the more unhappy he felt. Dead face. Let's see who dies first tomorrow. Qin Hao turned back and snorted coldly before disappearing in front of everyone. Sigh. Junior brother is too arrogant. He'll suffer a great loss. Seeing this, Lin Feng shook his head and left. He was very worried for Qin Hao. There was a world of difference between people with and without a special physique. Like Wang Gui and Long Fun, they were born to be favored by the heavens. They were destined to step on everyone's heads in the future. They could only blame their bad luck for not awakening the primordial spirit in their bodies. In fact, those people with special bloodlines in the divine wilderness continent all had a mysterious primordial spirit in their bodies. The power of the primordial spirit was strange and unpredictable. It could greatly increase one's overall strength. It also determined a person's future fate, whether they were a dragon or an insect. It was a pity that Lin Feng and Qin Hao were the same. They both did not have a primordial spirit. Closing the cabin door, Qin Hao sat cross-legged. His understanding of primordial spirits was much more than Lin Feng. Primordial spirits were a very mysterious thing. Some people's primordial spirits existed naturally. Some people's primordial spirits needed to be stimulated to slowly awaken. All kinds of things in the world could become primordial spirits. They could be divided into weapons, animals, tools, and even wind, fire, thunder, and other elements. For example, if a cultivator's primordial spirit was a hoe, then his innate talent would be farming. His hoeing speed and technique would naturally be better than others. For example, if a person's primordial spirit was a bird, then even if that person's strength did not reach the saint level, they could use their primordial spirit to condense their primordial spirit. They could naturally fly. This was a huge difference. This was also the advantage of having a primordial spirit. Actually, whether it was Xiaoguo's bull demon body, King Turtle's black tortoise blood meridians, or Chen Wanqin's ice spirit body. In fact, they were all primordial spirits. Qin Hao could almost guess that Xiao Guo's primordial spirit was a bull. As for what kind of bull it was, it still needed to be verified. King Turtle's primordial spirit was a tortoise. With his current strength, it was completely possible for him to summon the black tortoise. At that time, perhaps a tortoise shell would appear on his body. There was no need to mention Chan Wanqin's primordial spirit. It was an ice elemental primordial spirit. In short, even if it was a weak ant, it could become a primordial spirit of a primordial spirit. But the chances of having a primordial spirit was very small. It was hard to find one in 10,000 people. Every primordial spirit awakened primordial spirit. Even if their primordial spirit was very weak, they still had the qualifications to be proud of. This was also Qin Hao's sore spot. Whether it was his previous life or this life, Qin Hao's a primordial spirit awakened primordial spirit. Actually, in the ancient era, primordial spirits were very common. Almost everyone had one. People like Qin Hao who couldn't awaken primordial spirits were undoubtedly trash. With the passage of time, the era changed. Nowadays, people without primordial spirits were rare and common, but primordial spirits were very rare. A primordial spirit is really a good thing. Qin Hao let out a long sigh, somewhat bitter. How he wished he could be like Xiao Gua and have a primordial spirit, even if it was a trash chicken. But even having a chicken primordial spirit was an extravagant hope for him. Even if I don't have a primordial spirit, I still won't admit defeat. King Turtle, just wait and see. There's still Tian Buoguang. A trace of sharpness flashed in his eyes. Qin Hao secretly clenched his fists. This battle was not only related to the dignity of Qiyang University. Moreover, it was a life and death battle between Qin Hao and King Turtle. Chapter 368. Sister Wanqin is waiting for you. Half a day later, they arrived at Luoshui's Imperial District. The Imperial District was many times more prosperous than the High Family Chamber of Commerce's Northern District. Ouyang booked an inn to settle down the contestants of the academy. In the end, Qin Hao brought Yi Shuihan and Nailin Li to Quanglong Inn to look for Xiaogua. Tomorrow was the day of the Rising Star Competition's Commoner Passage selection. It would last for 2 days. The contestants who stood out from the Commoner Passage would have the chance to exchange blows with the geniuses of the 4 great academies. At this time, the seeded contestants of the 4 great academies had already gathered in the Imperial District. Qin Hao was quite excited that his brothers were about to meet. I really miss Melon Bro. As they spoke, they had already arrived at Quanglong Inn. Looking around, the people entering and exiting the inn were all Quanglong disciples wearing golden robes with a dragon head embroidered on their chests. Seeing Qin Hao's group arrive, these disciples sneered maliciously. Some of them even pointed at Qin Hao, looking down on the disciples of Qiyang University. It was no wonder. In the previous competitions between the 4 great academies, Qiyang University had always been at the bottom. In their opinion, this year was no exception. Qiyang University's contestants were here to give away points to Quanglong Academy. Boss! A voice suddenly sounding very happy. Qin Hao looked over and saw an elegant young man wearing a golden robe running out. Melon Bro. Qin Hao smiled. When the brothers met, they gave each other a firm hug. Qin Hao sized up Xiaogua. Melon Bro had grown taller. Maybe it was because his physique was too strong, but he was already taller than Qin Hao's shoulder at the age of 12 or 13. His body looked very sturdy. The young man's face lost some of its childishness and gained a trace of resoluteness. It could be seen that Xiaogua had also experienced many twists and turns in Quanglong Academy. There was also a thumb-sized scar under his eyebrow. Who hit you? Qin Hao's eyes suddenly tightened, and his tone was extremely dignified. It's all in the past. It's okay. The guy who hit me didn't get much of an advantage. Xiaogua scratched his head and giggled. His bright eyes lost a trace of the innocence and intelligence of a young man, and added a sense of vicissitudes. Qin Hao's hands unconsciously clenched. Melon Bro's personality had changed so much. He must have been bullied a lot in the academy. Qin Hao swore that if he caught this person, he would definitely not let him go. He was able to make Melon Brother, who was always laughing and joking, completely changed beyond recognition. Why are there so many people? Only then did Xiaogua notice Yi Shuihan and Nailin Li. He couldn't help but be startled. When she saw Nalan Li, her big eyes flickered and she looked very interested. Perhaps it was because he was about the same age as Nalan Li. Oh, I forgot. Let me introduce you. Boss, there's no need to say so much. My surname is Yi, and my name is Shuehan. Let me first tell you, little guy. Offending me won't do you any good. You only need to know that my surname is Yi, and I'm Qin Hao's loyal supporter. I'm also his best brother and fan. Yi Shuehan took the initiative to say. He stared at Xiaogua, as if warning him. Because Xiaogua also called Qin Hao boss, he felt a sense of crisis. I'm Naransu. She's my sister Naransu. We're friends of big brother Qin Hao. Nice to meet you, Nalan Li said, and pointed at Naransu, who was beside her. She then extended her small hand to Xiaogua. Nice to meet you. Xiaogua shook Nalan Li's hand shyly. He had always been very clever, but at this moment, he was suddenly stunned and forgot to let go of his hand. Hurry up and let go of me. You're so rude. You're holding Sister Xiao Li's hand and not letting go. Are you trying to take advantage of her? Good, you slut. You don't put me, Yi Shuehan, in your eyes. Offending me won't do you any good. Yi Shuehan took a step forward and rudely slapped Xiaogua's hand away, threatening him with his eyes. He was already very dissatisfied with Xiaogua. He dared to challenge his position as Yi Shuehan's underling. Now he was still holding Sister Xiao Li's hand and not letting go. Intolerable. Regarding this, Xiaogua frowned. He didn't seem to have offended this arrogant young Master Yi. What are you looking at? Haven't you seen such a handsome underling like me? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm full of flaws. My only advantage is that I'm handsome. Yi Shuehan raised his head and said, as if Qin Hao was the biggest and he was the second in command. Regarding this, Qin Hao helplessly shook his head. Brother Melon, you should introduce yourself. It's also good to remind someone. Otherwise, he won't even know how he died later. Understood. Xiaogua could also see that Yi Shuehan was targeting him. His expression turned serious, and a surge of energy fluctuated from his body. He said seriously, my name is Xiaogua. I have the Herculean bull demon body. I'm the second in the Violent Dragon Academy's Earth ranking. I'm a 4-star mortal saint. My master is the Outer Court's Great Elder. Kacha. Yi Shuehan's eyeballs almost fell out. Nalan Li and Naransu were also incomparably shocked. This little guy in front of them was actually the second in the Violent Dragon Academy's Earth ranking that even Lin Feng was afraid of. He was the legendary super expert who could transform into a 4-meter-tall monster. At this moment, their faces were filled with terror. They simply couldn't associate the harmless Xiaogua with a 4-meter-tall monster. What was even more unexpected was that he actually called Qin Hao boss. Yi Shuehan immediately panicked. He thought to himself, I've offended a monster. And what did he do just now? He hit the monster's hand. He still wanted to compete with the monster to be his little brother. Brother Melon, let me introduce myself again. I'm Yi Shuehan. My ancestor was actually a teacher. He doesn't have any strength. Please take care of me in the future. Yi Shuehan hurriedly smiled apologetically. Dense beads of sweat covered his forehead. Fortunately, he didn't go too far. If he was unlucky enough to meet Xiaogua in the competition, he would be beaten to death. Yi Shuehan didn't dare to provoke a 4-star mortal saint. Moreover, he was a monster who could suddenly transform. After transforming, he would be even stronger. Don't be nervous. Since you're my big brother's friends, you will also be Xiaogua's friends in the future. By the way, big brother, Sister Wanqin is waiting for us by Luoshui Lake. Let's go. Xiaogua said heroically. After that, he pulled Qin Hao and ran. He had already agreed to meet Chen Wanqin at Luoshui Lake. Luoshui Lake? Yi Shuehan and Naransu looked at each other. That was a good place to go. To be precise, it was a good place for couples to talk about love. It was also the most beautiful place in the Imperial City. As the saying went, if you didn't guess the riddles on Luoshui Street or go boating on Luoshui Lake, you would have wasted your life in the Imperial City. In the past, Yi Shuehan often played by Luoshui Lake. He made a name for himself and left many romantic debts. Immediately, the three of them chased after him. Xiaogua's identity had already surprised them. They didn't know who this Sister Wan Qin was. At this moment, they admired Qin Hao even more. No wonder the old dean said that they could let Qin Hao and Xiaohua have a fight. No matter how they fought, Qin Hao couldn't be hurt. Chapter 369. Translator. Henyi Translations Editor. Henyi Translations, do you know your place? They trotted all the way to the Luoshui Lake. The Luoshui Lake was really big, with blue waves rippling. The shore was covered with green trees and flowers, and the scenery was extremely beautiful. The surrounding streets were full of people, and the shouts of the peddlers were endless. Although it was not night yet, the lanterns had been set up in advance, and it was a magnificent scene of heaven. On the shore of the lake, groups of scholars were still in the mood to cook and drink. They sat in front of the wine table, raising their wine cups and drinking into the sky. The poems in their mouths were incessantly reciting, and between their brows, they constantly cast flirtatious glances at the slender young girls that passed by. In short, this was the world of young people, and it was endless fun. There were also some cultivators who surged their origin chi and flew in the lake water, displaying some water skills. They were very attractive and won the hearts and cheers of many girls. Luoshui Lake is really a magnificent scene, Qin Hao exclaimed, feeling as if he was in a peach garden. Naransu and Nalanli nodded at the same time. They rarely saw such beautiful scenery in Dawei. The Luoshui Empire was really the hometown of water. Brother, look over there. At this time, Xiaohua pointed to a small pavilion not far away. In the pavilion, there was a girl, slim and graceful, holding a sword in her hand and wearing a tight white dress. She looked clean and valiant, and gave people a feeling that she was not inferior to men. In particular, her pair of long legs were particularly eye-catching, and they were very slender. It was Chun Wanqin. She stood in the pavilion and looked at the lake. Her long eyelashes were fluttering, and she was very quiet and beautiful. However, there was a large group of men standing around the pavilion. All of them were staring at her and drooling. It seemed that they couldn't wait to rush into the pavilion and make friends with Chun Wanqin. In fact, if it wasn't for Chun Wanqin's invisible ice-cold aura that kept people at a distance, they would have already swarmed over. So beautiful. Is she Sister Wanqin, Brother Hao's girlfriend? Nalanli was surprised. Even though she was a girl, she was deeply attracted to Chun Wanqin's temperament. Naransu nodded in agreement. Just by standing there, Chun Wanqin's outstanding temperament had already transcended the mortal world, which made her feel a little ashamed. Chun Wanqin was really too beautiful, and her figure was too good. But she was Qin Hao's girlfriend? This was something that Naransu couldn't imagine. Wanqin, Qin Hao called out and walked over with a smile. Qin Hao. When Qin Wanqin heard the familiar voice, her body trembled violently. When she turned around, she was already smiling like a flower, which made all the men around the pavilion stunned. Scram! Otherwise, you won't be able to see tomorrow's sun. Yi Shuihan rushed into the crowd and shouted. He even slapped someone in the face. This group of messy flies was simply an eyesore to Brother Hao. His rude behavior was so fierce that Qin Hao was startled. In his impression, he had never seen Yi Shuihan angry. When did he become so domineering? In fact, Qin Hao didn't know that Yi Shuihan was a local tyrant in the Luoshui Lake area. Before he entered the academy, he was a tyrant here. Although he didn't have any strength, anyone who dared to resist him would immediately become disabled the next day. This kind of outrageous thing made the talents in the Luoshui Lake area very afraid. Even Prime Minister whose grandson broke a leg the next day because he quarreled with Yi Shuihan. After that, Prime Minister who didn't even dare to fart. Originally, the people around the pavilion wanted to get angry, but when they saw the old mad doggy coming, they all recognized his face. Immediately, they swallowed back their curses. The guy who was slapped by Yi Shuihan looked as if he had seen a ghost. He didn't dare to look back and ran away holding his pants. Qin Wanqin was very puzzled. Why was there a group of aggressive people behind Qin Hao, especially Yi Shuihan, who looked like a big villain who often took liberties with young girls? When did Qin Hao's taste change and become friends with such scum? Oh, my goddess, please allow this young master to introduce himself. My surname is Yi Shuihan. Offending me won't do anyone any good. In fact, I'm a domineering man. You saw my coquettish posture just now. Little Yi, can't you see that my big brother hasn't finished speaking yet? Sayoba muttered, looking a little unhappy. Before Qin Hao could open his mouth, Yi Shuihan introduced himself. Yes, boss. After you. Yi Shuihan quickly retreated, looking helpless and embarrassed. Nailin Li covered her mouth and laughed. Cough, cough. They're my friends from Qian University. This is young Master Yi. Yes, his ancestor was a teacher, Qin Hao said simply, then introduced Nailin Li and Naransu to Chen Wanqin. How is it? Are you doing well in Xingyue Academy? It's okay. My master is the deputy dean of the outer court, so no one dares to bully me. But, forget it, it's fine. Chen Wanqin smiled, wanted to say something but hesitated. In fact, even if she didn't say anything, Qin Hao could guess that Chen Wanqin was in trouble. In Xingyue Academy, there was a guy called Tian Boiguang who was pestering Chen Wanqin. Tian Boiguang was the grandson of the dean. Even if Chen Wanqin had her master's support, Tian Boiguang was still unscrupulous. In fact, this was what made Chen Wanqin feel disgusted. She didn't say anything, and Qin Hao didn't ask. It wasn't easy for everyone to meet, so they consciously covered up their troubles to avoid spoiling the atmosphere. However, Qin Hao silently remembered it in his heart. No matter who hurt Melon Bro's face, or Tian Boiguang, who was sticking to Chen Wanqin, they couldn't escape. Come, let's go boating. At this time, Yi Shuihan suggested. It was still early, so the lanterns could only be seen at night. Qin Hao nodded and brought everyone to the shore to rent a boat. There were a lot of people renting boats. It seemed like all the disciples of the 4 great academies had squeezed to Luoshui Lake during the holidays, so the boats on the shore couldn't meet the demand. Qin Hao just picked a boat and was about to pay. Then a barbaric voice sounded. I've taken a fancy to this boat. Looking back, he saw a guy with bulging muscles standing behind him. Although this person wasn't wearing any clothes, his pants were yellow, the same as Tsayoga's clothes. Without a doubt, he was a disciple from Wild Dragon Academy. Moreover, this person rudely pushed Qin Hao away and directly took out the money and handed it to the boatman. Sir, the boat has been rented, the old man who rented the boat said. Everyone understood the principle of first come, first served. Moreover, this old man was a businessman, so he couldn't ruin his own reputation. Hearing this, the muscular man's face instantly darkened. His thick eyebrows knitted together as he turned around and pointed at Qin Hao's nose. Hey, you trash from Qian University, listen up. If you know what's good for you, quickly give up the boat to me. Otherwise, you'll have to bear the consequences. Who the hell do you think you are? Yi Shuihan was furious on the spot. Who the hell do I think I am? You trash, listen up. I'm ranked 29th on the Earth leaderboard of Wild Dragon Academy. People have given me the nickname of the Double Pen Judge. With one stroke, I can pierce through your forehead. Do you want to give it a try? As he spoke, the Sumeru pouch on the muscular man's waist flashed, and he took out a pair of judge pens. With a white pen in his left hand and a black pen in his right, he stared at Yi Shuihan with a ferocious expression and sneered. Gulp! Yi Shuihan swallowed his saliva. He took the initiative to retreat, revealing Qin Hao behind him. He could fight a war of words, but when it came to crucial moments, he still had to rely on his boss. Wild Dragon Academy, ranked 29th on the Earth leaderboard? Does your academy not know how to respect your seniors? Ranked 29th, and you dare to be arrogant in front of the second-ranked? Brother Gua, this person is a disciple of your academy. I'll give you some face and not make a move. Qin Hao sneered. Chapter 370. Mad Dragon number 1 inch long Sanjin. Are you courting death? Sayoga roared. Due to his small frame and the fact that he was at the back of the crowd, the muscular man named Long Sanjin did not see him for a while. No matter where one went in the world, there were bound to be people watching the fun, not to mention in the crowded Luoshui Lake. In an instant, a large group of people rushed over. When they heard Long Sanjin reveal his identity, their eyes were filled with fear. Many of them were ordinary disciples of the 4 great academies. To them, being in the top 30 of the Outer Courtyard's Earth ranking was indeed an extremely high status. On the other hand, Sayogua's status was even higher. He was actually ranked 2nd in the Kuang Long Outer Court. Immediately, everyone was shocked. Long Sanjin was most likely going to suffer. The onlookers nodded in agreement. In fact, that wasn't the case. Sayogua? Long Sanjin was stunned. His expression became extremely cautious as his body trembled. Everyone could clearly feel a trace of panic in his heart. However, Long Sanjin regained his composure in an instant. I was wondering why the trash from Qian University was so daring. It turns out that they have you backing them up. However, a gentleman uses his mouth, not his fists. Don't act recklessly. My boss will be here soon. Sayogua's expression turned serious after hearing this. His initial intention to teach the other party a lesson vanished. His subtle changes did not escape Qin Hao's discerning eyes. He guessed that Long Sanjin's boss must be quite famous. There is only one person in the Kuang Long Outer Courtyard who could make Melon Brother somewhat afraid. Are you scared? In front of my boss, even if you're a dragon, you have to coil up. If you're a tiger, you have to lie down. If you're a master, you have to act like a grandson. What great strength, ox demon physique. Big my ass. Here, 20 mysterious crystals. Take the money and get out of here. Long Sanjin used his boss to intimidate Sayogua. He immediately became very proud. He took out a bag of mysterious crystals and threw it at Sayogua's face. He even seemed to be muttering, "Little bastard." His words were full of undisguised humiliation. Sayogua was so angry that his fists were clenched so tightly that they were trembling. His gaze had reached its limit. You still dare to glare at me? Haven't you been taught a lesson by my boss? You're getting gutsy again, aren't you? You trash. Why haven't you disappeared yet? When Long Sanjin saw that Qin Hao and Sayogua had no intention of leaving, he pointed at their noses and said, "Ha!" Qin Hao rushed up and slapped him across the face. Even though he only used 20% of his strength, Long Sanjin was sent flying into the air and smashed into the sand. His face was swollen like a pig's head. Trash! Qin Hao roared. He didn't want to cause trouble, but that didn't mean he was afraid of it. Especially when he insulted his brother and offended Qin Hao's reverse scale. You dare to hit me? Long Sanjin was stunned by the slap. He lay miserably in the sand pit. The 5 bright red fingerprints on his face were especially glaring. Bang! Qin Hao went up and gave him another kick, knocking out 10 of his teeth. Blood flowed out of his mouth. That's exactly what I want to beat up. After that, Qin Hao grabbed Long Sanjin's neck and lifted him up. He slapped Long Sanjin's face nonstop. Long Sanjin's body swayed left and right. Blood spurted out from his mouth. It seemed that he was going to die soon. This scene shocked everyone so much that they were petrified like stone statues. It also made Sayogua's heart beat wildly. Long Sanjin's boss was extremely powerful. He would definitely not let this go. At this moment, he was deeply worried for Qin Hao. But for some reason, Sayogua felt hot blood flowing through his heart. He felt his body burning. He was extremely happy. The scene of Qin Hao beating up Long Sanjin seemed to have brought him back to the past. Once, he was as fearless as his boss. He was full of heroism. After entering the Mad Dragon Academy, Sayogua's sharpness gradually faded away. Now, he felt that his passion had returned. Qin Hao had awakened his original heart. I don't care who you are or who your boss is. Even if you dare to bully my brother, you will pay with your blood. In the blink of an eye, Qin Hao had beaten Long Sanjin half to death. He was lying on the ground like a pile of mud. Big brother. Sayogua was so touched that tears flowed down his face. You arrogant brat. My big brother will not let you go. Long Sanjin cursed with a dying breath. His face was full of humiliation. As a disciple of the Mad Dragon Academy, he was beaten up in public by a piece of trash from Qian University. Moreover, he could not retaliate at all. He would no longer have the face to stay in the academy. He would be mocked to death by his junior brothers and sisters. You still dare to be arrogant? I'll kick you to death, you bastard. Seeing this, Yi Shuihan felt that his chance to show off had come. Long Sanjin did not even have the strength to resist. His face was full of joy. He rushed up and was about to stomp his foot. Whoosh! Suddenly, a surge of yuan qi swept through the air and headed straight for Yi Shuihan. It carried a cloud of dust with it. It was extremely ferocious. Qin Hao reacted quickly. He stomped on the ground and shook a cloud of dust. The cloud of dust and the spreading yuan qi exploded together. With a loud bang, a cloud of dust was stirred up. At this time, Yi Shuihan also retreated with a face full of dust. How dare you beat up my people? You must be tired of living. An angry voice sounded. From afar, a group of young men in golden robes walked over. The leader was quite handsome. He had an extraordinary bearing. He was about 1.8 meters tall and was very muscular. Invisibly, he exuded a sense of majesty that made people's hearts palpitate. When the others saw this, they all avoided him. Big brother, you're finally here. If you were half a step slower, I would have been beaten to death by Xiaogua and the others. Actually, I'm not afraid at all. It's just that they have too many people. They ganged up on me. In fact, I'm still very strong. You must help me. Long Sanjin hugged the leg of the handsome young man tightly and cried with a face full of tears. Long Fun, when Xiaogua saw the person who came, he couldn't help but feel a trace of nervousness. The scar under his eyebrows unconsciously twisted. Qin Hao silently observed. It seemed that he had guessed correctly. Long Sanjin's boss was the #1 person on the Earth leaderboard of the Quanglong Academy. Only this person could make Guadi feel fear. Moreover, the injury on Guadi's face was probably caused by this person. Xiaogua, you're very arrogant. Is the lesson I left on your face not enough? In fact, Qin Hao's guess was right. Long Fun had already admitted it and was showing off. Long Fun, don't be too proud. You're just relying on the fact that you're a senior student of the academy. I've only been in the academy for 3 days, and you've already beaten me. You're clearly afraid of my potential. You're afraid that I'll surpass you in the future and snatch your #1 position. When the past was mentioned, Xiaogua was also filled with righteous indignation. At that time, he thought that the academy was a happy campus. He didn't expect that on the 3rd day of entering the academy, the legendary big senior brother of the Earth leaderboard would come to provoke him. At that time, Xiaogua naively thought that the big senior brother had come to guide him out of kindness. However, he was beaten up by Long Fun in public. Xiaogua would never forget that time when Long Fun stepped on his head and insulted Xiaogua's bull demon body as dog shit. He said that Xiaogua was an incompetent trash. Chapter 371. So what if we fight? You think I'm afraid of your potential? Why don't you take a look at yourself? The bull demon physique is like dirt in my eyes. I have the tyrant dragon bloodline. You will never be able to surpass me. I am your god. Longfin said proudly. He didn't seem to care about the bull demon physique at all. But deep down he was worried. Moreover, he silently glanced at Qin Hao. Just now, it was Qin Hao who had blocked his origin energy chop, although he had only used 30% of his strength. There weren't many people who could block 30% of his strength. Qin Hao was wearing the uniform of Qiyang University's disciples. In his impression, other than Lin Feng, Longfin couldn't find anyone in Qiyang University who could fight against him. He couldn't help but look at Qin Hao again. That's right. As long as my boss is in Quanglong, you, Xiaogua, will never be able to make a name for yourself. Hurry up and apologize to my boss, then return his boat. Long Sanjin raised his nose. He hurriedly explained to Long Fun, Boss, there are no boats nearby. Only the one in front of you is waiting for you. I gave them 20 mysterious crystals just now, but they were thrown to the ground by the trash from Qiyang University. Long Sanjin picked up the bag and handed it to Long Fun respectfully. We saw the boat first. How did it become yours? Nalan Li was unconvinced. She was so angry that her little face puffed up. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Since my boss is here, this boat belongs to him. It's only right. Long Sanjin scolded with a fierce face. He was beaten up by Qin Hao, so he wanted to take the opportunity to scare the girls from Qiyang University and regain some face. Longfin nodded in agreement. Long Sanjin's words were exactly what he meant. He also saw that there were too many people nearby, and all the boats had been rented out. He was the #1 disciple of Quanglong. It wasn't easy for him to come out and show off. If he couldn't even rent a boat, wouldn't he lose face? Besides, snatching Tsayogua's boat was the most exciting excuse for long fun. Sanjin, why are you so loud? Don't scare the junior sisters from the Scarlet Sun Academy. Junior sister, don't be nervous. Sanjin's words are a little crude, but they are reasonable. Moreover, I can be merciful and allow you to board the ship with me. You can also impart some cultivation techniques and experience to this junior sister and bring our academies closer together. Longfen pretended to be kind and smiled. Although he wanted to snatch the boat, he still looked very generous. This was because he realized that the little lowly in front of him was too cute, and he couldn't help but feel his heart flutter. Don't listen to him. You're not allowed to go. Tsayougua hurriedly shielded Nalan Li behind him. His reaction speed was even faster than Nalan Li's sister, Naransu, and Qin Hao. Even he himself was baffled by this. Tsayougua, what's with your attitude? I'm just taking a junior from Chiang University out of the goodness of my heart. How dare you stop me? Longfen was displeased and said coldly, You invited the junior from Chiang University to come on the boat. Did you ask their senior brother? Qin Hao stood out and said, Longfen was not an ordinary, unreasonable person. Chiang University's senior brother? Longfen was stupefied. He didn't know what was going on. He glanced around, but didn't see Lin Feng. Lin Feng was recognized as the #1 person in the outer courtyard of Chiang University. Longfen was very clear about this, and had even met Lin Feng a few times. Every time they met, Lin Feng would lower his head like a junior and humbly ask for advice. But Lin Feng wasn't there. Forget it, forget it. It doesn't matter whether Lin Feng is here or not. In fact, it doesn't matter. By the way, who are you? Do you have the right to speak? Longfen looked at Qin Hao. It was this person who blocked 30% of his power just now. Are you blind? This is our senior brother from Chiang University. He is also my and Tsayogua's brother. You are really not well informed. 2 days ago, our boss Qin Hao defeated Lin Feng and became the #1 person in the outer courtyard of Chiang University. Why don't you kneel down and respect him? Maybe if our boss is happy, he will teach you a move or two. Yi Shuihan laughed. Tsayougua gave him a thumbs up in admiration. He didn't know who this young master Yu was. He didn't say anything, but he shocked the world with a single brilliant feat. Even Tsayougua, who thought he was the #1 in cursing, admired him from the bottom of his heart. Although young master Yi didn't act like a good person and was a bit like a playboy who often flirted with girls, his words were really satisfying. Because he cursed the #1 person in the outer courtyard of Quanglong University. Even if he died, it was enough to be proud. F***CK, your grandpa. Longfen was immediately enraged and roared hoarsely. He was so enraged by Yi Shuihan that he lost his image in an instant. Since he was born, no one dared to make fun of his name. When his father named him, it implied that Longfen meant to fight like a dragon. But Yi Shuihan used it to humiliate him. Don't be angry, big brother. It's not good to be angry with a mad dog. Long Sanjin quickly patted Longfen's head with his palm. His big brother's face turned green with anger. I'm not angry. I'm surprised that Lin Feng lost to a big pile of dog shit. To be honest, you are too weak. Tsayougua is really unlucky to have you as his big brother. I feel that it's not worth it for him. Ha ha. Longfen looked down on Qin Hao. Through the probing move just now, he clearly felt that his opponent's strength was only at the level of a 9-star primary grandmaster. Longfen was a 5-star mortal saint, a sacred level expert. He had the tyrant dragon bloodline and could laugh at the world. Not to mention Qin Hao, even Tsayougua with the bull demon body could be pinched to death easily. Longfen, don't be too arrogant. Tsayougua shouted. It was okay to insult him, but the only person he couldn't insult was his big brother, Qin Hao. Qin Hao had saved Tsayogua's life many times. Back then, they had messed up the auction and lived and died together in the explosive Flame Mountain Range. The brotherhood was thicker than water. So what if I'm arrogant? If you don't like it, come and hit me now. Oh, sorry, you don't dare. You're a coward, so slap. Long Fun's eyes narrowed. He threw the bag of mysterious crystals at Tsiogua's face again. Take the money and get lost. In my eyes, you're only worth 20 mysterious crystals. Ha ha, squeak. Qi Xiaohua clenched her fists, and a rolling aura spread out from her body. Her body began to change gradually. Her muscles visibly expanded, and an illusory giant bull vaguely appeared behind her back. It seemed like she was about to open her natal source spirit. Don't be impulsive. Qin Hao stopped him. Long Fun's strength couldn't be underestimated. If they really fought, they would need to work together. At least Qin Hao wasn't his opponent. Tsiougua wasn't either. What? Are you scared? Come and fight. I have wanted to beat you for a long time. You better pray that you don't meet me in the Rising Star competition. Otherwise, I will beat you to death. Long Fun also clenched his fists. He put them on his waist and got into a horse stance. An illusory tyrant dragon appeared behind him. A dragon's roar came from his body. He also had a natal source spirit. His strength was 1 star higher than Tsiogua's. Suddenly, the tense atmosphere was on the verge of breaking out. It was very tense. The onlookers made way. The battle between the first and second-ranked wild dragon was not something they could get close to. If they were a little careless, the aftermath would be enough to kill them. Long Fun, right? The first-ranked wild dragon? Ha! Today, Chen Wanqin, have learned something. So what if we fight? Come. Shua. Chen Wanqin unsheathed her sword. She stepped forward and stood in a row with Qin Hao and Tsiougua. The momentum of the 3 people increased instantly. The 3 people walked out of Jiang country together. They were like brothers and sisters. Come together. Chapter 372. I will personally deal with him. Nailin Zhu, who was next to him, also got into a fighting posture. Perhaps her strength was very low, but this Long Fun was too much. Miss Wanqin, Long Fun was slightly absent-minded. He immediately withdrew the essence soul behind him and removed his guard. He and Tsiougua were sworn enemies. His attention had always been on the other side, and he had neglected Chen Wanqin. There were only a few people in the 4 academies who had essence souls. He was naturally no stranger to Chen Wanqin. Chen Wanqin was the goddess of Star Moon Outer Courtyard. She had the strength of a 1-star mortal saint and was ranked 4th on the Earth list. However, her ice essence soul was very difficult to deal with. If she joined forces with Tsiougua, Long Fun would not have any advantage. What's more, Qin Hao was still eyeing covetously from his side. It seemed that he had some skills. In fact, these were not important. What Long Fun was really afraid of was Tian Boguang. It was rumored that Tian Boguang was pestering Chen Wanqin like a teddy bear in heat. This person was also the grandson of Star Moon Main Courtyard. His strength was comparable to Long Fun. What was terrifying was that Tian Boguang also had an essence soul and was very powerful. Long Fun asked himself and did not have the confidence to defeat Tian Boguang. If even half a hair on Chen Wanqin's head was injured, Tian Boguang would fight him to the death. Thinking of this, Long Fun's eyelids twitched a few times. He pointed at Tsiougua with an unwilling face and said, "You are so lucky to have Miss Wanqin's support. Since that is the case, I will give you this ship. But it doesn't mean that I am afraid of you, Tsiougua. If you have the guts, let's meet in the arena." "And you trash." Long Fun's cold eyes stared at Qin Hao's position. "I am very curious. What ability do you have to defeat Lin Feng? What qualifications do you have to beat Tsiogua's boss? To be honest, I really feel ashamed for Tsiougua. Haha." Long Fun had always regarded Tsiougua as his only opponent in the Wild Dragon Academy, but he had recognized a trash like Qin Hao as his boss. This made Long Fun feel that he had lowered his status. "If you're done with your bullshit, then scram. Do you want to fight me?" Qin Hao said in a deep voice. "All right, you've got guts. Just wait and see." Long Fun waved his hand and left with his men. However, he suddenly stopped in his tracks and turned around to look at the 2 sisters, Nailin Li and Nailin Zhu, with a smile on his face. Unwilling to give up, he said, "Why don't you 2 junior sisters from the Scarlet Sun Academy come and play with me? I can guarantee your safety. If you follow someone else, haha, it's hard to avoid accidents. And Miss Wanqin, if you don't mind, I can temporarily take care of you on behalf of Brother Boguang. Ha. Threats. It was a blatant threat. Moreover, there was also an element of humiliation. What he meant was that if the three girls left with him, he wouldn't make things difficult for Tsyogwa. If they didn't, he had many ways to make things difficult for Tsyogwa and Qin Hao. Moreover, he used Tian Boguang to disgust Chen Wanqin. He was clearly saying that he, Long Fun, wasn't afraid of them. He was just giving face to Tian Boguang. You don't have to worry about it. Also, I want to make one thing clear to you. Tian Boguang has nothing to do with me. Chen Wanqin gritted her teeth and quickly glanced at Qin Hao. Her eyes seemed to say, I have no feelings for Tian Boguang. You're really annoying. Please stay away from me. I don't want to be stained with the bad luck in your name. Nailonly pinched her small nose and deliberately fanned it in front of her face as if Long Fun's name was very smelly. You don't know how to appreciate favors. You'll regret it. Long Fun felt that he had lost all his face and left after saying those words. After leaving, he took a group of wild dragon disciples and directly robbed someone's ship. Only then did he feel better. Whether I'm qualified to be Melon Brothers' boss or not, you'll know soon enough. Qin Hao's heart was burning with anger as he looked at Long Fun's figure in the distance. He would remember the other party's provocation. Big brother, don't lower yourself to the same level as a dog. I want to take care of Long Fun with my own hands. After paying the old man, the few of them boarded the small boat. Tsyogwa said to Qin Hao. Perhaps in Tsyogwa's opinion, Long Fun had undoubtedly hurt Qin Hao's self-esteem. In fact, he wanted to say that no matter what Qin Hao became in the future, he would never forget that confident figure in the explosive flame mountain range. Qin Hao's image was deeply ingrained in Tsyogwa's heart. He would always be his boss. Hee. Qin Hao smiled faintly as if mocking himself. After all, his current realm was the lowest among the three of them. I don't believe that you only have the strength of a 9-star Yuan Grandmaster. In fact, even if you're only a 9-star Yuan Grandmaster, you are not weaker than Long Fun. You might even be stronger than him. At the side, Chen Wanqin said firmly. She was full of confidence in Qin Hao. You know me quite well. Qin Hao rubbed his nose embarrassedly. He was indeed not an ordinary 9-star Yuan Grandmaster. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to win against the 3-star mortal Saint Lin Feng. However, compared to Long Fun, who had the tyrant dragon bloodline, he was indeed much weaker. This ignited Qin Hao's fighting spirit. In fact, a 9-star Yuan Grandmaster wasn't his true strength. If he refined the 5 weapons in the interspatial ring, Qin Hao's realm could instantly rise to the sacred grade. Then, after consuming the 4-leaf sacred violet orchid that Yao Lao had given him, he would immediately step into the 5-star mortal saint realm and be on par with Long Fun. At that time, it would be hard to tell who would emerge victorious. Big brother, don't be modest. Others might not know your temper, but Sister Wanqin and I know how many trump cards you have. Tsyogwa smiled mischievously. Qin Hao had endless means. Even if he was only a 9-star Yuan Grandmaster, he could probably play Long Fun to death. As they spoke, Tsyogwa's gaze kept sizing up Nailonly. What are you looking at? Nailonly had already noticed his gaze and reprimanded him. I think you look good. Tsyogwa said bluntly. You shameless. Nailonly's face turned red instantly. She snorted and turned away. Ha. Qin Hao couldn't help but be amused. He patted Tsyogwa's shoulder and said, It's only been a few months, and you have become a passionate young man. It's time to get a girlfriend. Cough. Tsyogwa coughed embarrassedly. He was very embarrassed. They were chatting enthusiastically. Qin Hao and Chen Wanqin were on the same wavelength. Tsyogwa and Nailonly were secretly fighting. On the contrary, Yi Shuihan was left out in the cold, which made him feel very wronged. At this moment, the ship was slowly moving on the lake, pushing out layers of ripples. It had a different artistic conception. Yi Shuihan wanted to get close to Naransu, but her face was so cold that he felt it was better not to provoke her. He knew that he wasn't Naransu's opponent. Besides, Naransu's gaze never left Qin Hao. She was a little jealous. Sigh. Yishuehan sighed and stood at the bow of the ship silently. He looked up at the sky and said with his hand behind his back, Luo Shui is 1,000 feet deep, but it's not as deep as my love for Boss. After that, he shook his head. Young master, what a good poem. The old man who was rowing the boat at the side hooked up with Yishuehan and couldn't help but praise. Young master's poem is full of admiration for your big brother. In addition, it also contains envy, jealousy, and hatred. You damned old man, row your boat. Yishuehan glared at the old man fiercely for mentioning his sore spot. Suddenly, a large ship rushed towards them without any intention of stopping. And in the distance, a stream of vitality blasted into the water from the opposite ship, setting off a turbulent wave. That wave rolled towards Qin Hao's boat to swallow it. Yishuehan stood at the bow of the ship. Facing the huge wave, he was so scared that he screamed. If they were hit, the whole boat would undoubtedly fall into the water and make a fool of themselves. And he also saw the figure standing on the opposite ship. It was long fun. Chapter 373. Translator, Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo, Studio Tyrannosaurus, a shockwave. It happened so suddenly that the wave was more than 10 meters high and swallowed the boat like an aquatic beast. The boat was as fragile as a leaf in front of the aquatic beast. The old man rowing the boat was so scared that his face turned pale, and he yelled, "Help!" If the wave hit the boat, it would be destroyed. The boat was used to support his family and his grandson. It would be destroyed for no reason. Seeing this, Chen Wanqin turned around and slapped forward with her palm. Her attack was extremely fast. White Qi rolled out from her palm and met the wave. As soon as they touched, the wave seemed to be imprisoned by the white Qi and immediately stopped moving forward. It turned into a layer of ice in front of everyone and then cracked and melted into the water. The boat was safe and sound. Good move. Naransu couldn't help but praise. Her eyes were bright. No wonder she was the goddess who ranked fourth on the Earth leaderboard. Naransu couldn't help but admit her inferiority. We're saved. The old man wiped the cold sweat from his head and exhaled. Your frost arts are more skillful than before. Qin Hao was slightly surprised and also praised. Chen Wanqin used to be very slow to gather such a powerful attack. Now, she could easily do it. She had improved a lot. Compared to you, it's just an insignificant skill. Chen Wanqin smiled modestly. You can block 40% of my strength. No wonder you're Miss Wanqin. But don't be too proud. Take this. Longfen stood on the opposite ship and felt his face turn dark. He immediately increased his strength from 40% to 70% and punched into the water. Buzz! A large circle of ripples appeared on the surface of the lake. The ripples extended for 10 meters and formed a whirlpool. The whirlpool's suction force was so strong that the boats 100 meters away were pulled up. The people on the other boats were terrified. Some people cried for their parents and jumped into the water. However, all of a sudden, the vortex exploded and a 10-meter-long water dragon slithered out of the vortex. It let out a roar and charged towards Qin Hao and the others head-on. Its momentum was twice as strong as the previous wave. It's over. It's all over now. I shouldn't have taken you kids' business. You have to pay for my boat. The old man who rowed the boat cried. He could tell that the arrogant young man in gold was obviously targeting Qin Hao and the others. As for the old man, he was affected. Uncle, don't be afraid. Watch me. Xiaobo was eager to give a try. He decided to show his skills to Qin Hao. Xiaobo was very envious that Chen Wanqin was praised by his boss. He stomped on the hull of the boat with both feet, and the powerful force caused the entire boat to sink 2 feet. The water was about to flood into the boat. However, Xiaobo grasped it very well. At this time, he finished accumulating his power, and an illusory giant bull appeared behind him. He tilted his head back slightly, sucked in a mouthful of lake water, and suddenly spat it out. Moo! Accompanied by an earth-shattering bull roar, Xiaobo's mouthful of water transformed into a strong 10-meter-long water buffalo. The water buffalo crashed into the water dragon and water splashed everywhere. Both of them dissipated at the same time. Ha ha! Sayogo put his hands on his waist and laughed. In this regard, Yishuehan and Nalanli looked at him as if he was a monster. No one would have thought that Sayogo's small body actually contained such monstrous power. At this moment, Sayogo also looked at Qin Hao proudly, like a student waiting for his teacher's praise. Not bad, you still need to work hard. Qin Hao patted Sayogo's shoulder, deliberately not giving him thumbs up. His purpose was to hope that his brother would continue to work hard and not be arrogant. Sayogo showed a trace of disappointment, but he was not discouraged. His eyes once again aroused a strong fighting spirit. Since the boss said that he was not good enough, then he had to do better. I'm afraid of you. I don't want the money. Quickly go down, don't implicate me. Seeing this, the old man did not dare to carry them anymore. He turned the boat around and rowed to the shore. He must drive Qin Hao and the others down. Damn, want to escape? It's not that easy. Long Fun on the opposite side cursed. He did not get any advantage over them. He underestimated Sayogo's ability, so he decided not to hold back anymore. He nodded, and his expression became very serious. With a loud shout, he awakened the soul in his body, and an illusory Tyrannosaurus appeared behind him. It was like a giant python winding together. The dragon head was huge and ferocious. I want to see how you can block my full-strength Tyrannosaurus soaring wave. While speaking, Long Fun's hands quickly condensed a seal in front of him. The illusory Tyrannosaurus behind him seemed to come alive and gradually became substantial. It seemed that he wanted to urge his soul to attack. His aura was tyrannical to the extreme, and the orange yuan qi on his body was incomparably vigorous. Under this huge pressure, half of the Luo Shui lake fluctuated. All the nearby boats were fleeing for their lives. Everyone could foresee that Long Fun's next attack would be earth-shattering. They did not want to be affected and fall into the lake to feed the fish. Young master on the opposite side, please be merciful. Don't embarrass me. Let me live, please. The old man was scared out of his wits and threw away the oar. Because Long Fun's aura was too strong, he knew that there was no possibility of escaping from the opponent's hands. So he knelt down and kowtowed. Ha ha ha, old man, now you know how to beg for mercy? If you had rented the boat to us, wouldn't everything have been fine? You can only blame your poor eyesight for not knowing that a true god had descended. So go to hell. On the big boat, Long Sanjin stood beside Long Fun and shouted arrogantly. Not only the old man had to die, but Qin Hao who had hit him also had to die. He was very clear about how powerful Long Fun's Tyrannosaurus soaring wave was. No one who had been hit by this move could survive. This was the result of being an enemy of Long Sanjin. I don't care about you. Go to hell if you want to die. Where there is life, there is hope. The old man abandoned the boat and plunged into the water. He was an excellent swimmer. If he dived into the bottom of the lake, he might be able to survive. As for Qin Hao and the others, it had nothing to do with him whether they lived or died. Boss, let's run away too. Yishuehan was so scared that his legs went soft. Longfen was still absorbing yuan qi, and the Tyrannosaurus behind him had expanded again. It could be seen that its power was monstrous. Big brother, let's go. Sayogo and Long Fun were rivals, so he was more familiar with this move than anyone else. Once Long Fun finished accumulating yuan qi, it would be a disaster for everyone. He knew that he couldn't block this move, so he couldn't help but feel humiliated. He pulled Qin Hao and wanted to run. Chen Wanqin also had the same idea. She looked at Nalanli and prepared to increase their yuan qi and fly away. Run? I'm afraid we won't have the chance. Qin Hao shook his head. Longfen had finished accumulating yuan qi, and the shockwave would hit them in the next second. Qin Hao had already activated the Golden Bell protection. With the strength of a 9-star Origin Grandmaster, the Golden Bell protection should be able to block this killing move for everyone. Although it might not be possible, Longfen wasn't an ordinary 5-star mortal saint. With the power of the Origin Spirit, his strength had reached the level of a 7-star. In fact, this Long Fun could also kill enemies of a higher level. In fact, this was indeed the case. Almost as soon as Qin Hao's voice fell, Long Fun had already screamed and pushed his palms out with all his might. The Tyrannosaurus Rex behind him soared into the sky and bombarded through the clouds and the sea. It overturned Luo Shui Lake all the way like a torpedo hitting a small boat. Chapter 374. On the field. This vibration made the souls of Qin Hao and the others numb. There was a loud crash. The boat was lifted 10 meters high, and the wooden hull made a creaking sound as if it couldn't bear the heavy load. It was in danger of disintegrating. God, I'm going to die. Yi Shui Han, am going to die. I don't want to die. I haven't fulfilled my wish yet. Boss, save me. Yi Shui Han rolled on the ground in a sorry state, howling madly and waving his hands wildly above his head. At this time, the T-Rex rolled up the hull, and the others couldn't stand still. Even the weaker ones, Naransu and Nalan Li, spat out blood. Qin Hao made a prompt decision and was about to activate the Golden Bell protection to block the damage for everyone. Suddenly, an indescribable force spread out from within the boat. It was like a breeze blowing in front of them. A large number of light spots rose from the surface of the lake. They were like fireflies that filled the sky. They quickly gathered towards Qin Hao and the others. Long Fun's monstrous attack that was superimposed with the source spirit dissipated with the light spots. No, to be precise, it was dissolved by someone. This scene was very strange. No one saw who did it. It was as if they had seen a ghost. The raging waves on the lake became calm, and the boat slowly drifted on the water. It was as if Long Fun's desperate attack never happened. This gave people a kind of unreal feeling. It was as if they were dreaming. What happened just now? The group of people from Qiang University are still alive? The attack of the number one person of the Wild Dragon had no effect. In the distance, a large number of people were confused. At this moment, even Sayogwa and the others were the same. They were confused and looked at each other. Who the hell blocked Long Fun's soaring wave? It was too amazing. At this moment, almost everyone's eyes were gathered on Qin Hao, because Qin Hao was standing at the bow of the boat with his arms open. He looked very impassioned and heroic, but in reality, his Golden Bell protection hadn't been activated yet. At this moment, Qin Hao's eyes were fixed on his feet. At his feet, Yi Shui Han was hugging Qin Hao's thigh with both hands due to excessive fear. His face was covered in snot, and his whole body was still trembling. Qin Hao had seen it clearly. In a moment of crisis, just now, as Yi Shuhan's hands were wildly waving about, an invisible and strange power had been mobilized by him, drawing in the power of the entire Luo Shui Lake. He had single-handedly mobilized the entire Luo Shui Lake and disintegrated Long Fun's 5-star Mortal Saint attack. Moreover, it was Long Fun's soul that had been pushed to the limit. The real expert who saved everyone was actually young Master Yi, who was crying like a grandson at his feet. If Qin Hao had not been reborn as Dendi, even he would have thought that he was dreaming. However, his experience from his previous life told him that Yi Shui Han, whose face was covered in snot, probably had the noblest water-type bloodline in the world. His bloodline was so high that it was hard to imagine. After all, he could use all the nearby water power with just a wave of his hand. Moreover, he had taken the initiative to save his master. This was no different from the water god. At this moment, Qin Hao's face was full of bitterness. He really couldn't understand what the hell Yi Shui Han was. Shit. On the big ship opposite, Long Fun's eyes were wide open, and his face was full of disbelief. He looked down at his hands and pinched his thigh. Ouch, it hurts. He wasn't dreaming. He easily dispelled my soaring wave. Long Fun couldn't believe it, even if he was beaten to death. He asked himself, even if Tian Boiwang took his full blow, it would be impossible for him to escape unscathed. At least, he would spit out a few mouthfuls of blood. On the other hand, Qin Hao and the others didn't lose a single hair. At this moment, a sense of fear rose from the soles of his feet to the top of his head. Long Fun was so scared that he broke out in cold sweat. Without saying anything, he turned around and ran. Although he didn't know what had happened, his attack had indeed been dispelled. He was sure that the person who had dispelled his attack was Qin Hao. Qin Hao stood on the bow of the ship with his arms open. His figure was incomparably tall. Longfen felt that Qin Hao was an unfathomable ghost. It was better to run away as soon as possible. What happened? Who can tell me what happened? Yi Shuihan came back to his senses and found that the surroundings were calm. He was also dumbfounded. Finally, he realized that he was hugging someone's leg. He raised his head and saw that it was Qin Hao. "Boss, thank you for saving my life. From now on, you, Qin Hao, are my real big brother." After saying that, he hugged Qin Hao's leg and burst into tears. If he had treated Qin Hao as his boss in the past, it was a kind of deal. But now he was completely convinced. Regarding this, Qin Hao was very helpless. He patted Yi Shuihan's shoulder to comfort him. Suddenly, he realized that Long Fun was about to run away. "You want to come and go as you wish. How could it be that easy? Melon brother," Qin Hao shouted. Understood. Xiaogua and Qin Hao had a tacit understanding. They knew that it was time to fight back. Longfen had tried to steal everyone's ship. If he wanted to steal, he would think about it. If he wanted to attack, he would attack. He had repeatedly made things difficult for everyone. How could they let him go? Immediately, Qi Xiaogua urged her source spirit, and the phantom of a giant bull appeared behind her. Her aura surged, and she pushed her small hand forward. The giant bull behind her was just like what Long Fun had done. It roared and charged forward. "I'll give you a hand." Chen Wanqin gathered her energy and mobilized the ice soul in her body. The surrounding temperature quickly dropped as if winter had suddenly arrived. There were even snowflakes floating down from the sky. She gathered all her ice power on Xiaogua's source spirit. When the giant bull charged forward, his body was covered in a thick ice armor. Invisible, the ice armor once again increased the impact of the giant bull. Courtesy demands reciprocity. You gave me a move, and I'll give you a big gift. Qin Hao smiled. In a flash, the purple meteorite sword appeared in his hand. The moonlight sword faintly emitted a dangerous red aura. After speaking, he pushed his right hand, and the 100 steps flying sword caught up with the giant bull in front of him like a meteor. It fell on the giant bull's head. This flying sword was like a horn on the giant bull's head. It emitted a bright light. "Oh my God! Run! Big brother, run!" The three people's aura was too strong. At this moment, all the disciples on Long Fun's ship chose to jump into the water. If they were late, they would have lost their lives. They could clearly feel how terrifying the giant bull with the ice armor and the horn was. The pressure was comparable to the attack of the school's elders. Long Sanjin was also scared out of his wits. He pulled Long Fun and wanted to jump into the water. But Long Fun kicked him in the face. "You want me, the #1 disciple of Kuang Long, to run away? That would be worse than killing him. Others are afraid of you, but I'm not. Let me see your abilities. Let the storm come more fiercely." Boom! As soon as he finished speaking, he was hit by the giant bull on the ship. The ship, which was more than 10 meters long, was smashed into pieces. Broken planks flew everywhere. The water on the lake surged hundreds of meters high and swallowed the shore like a tsunami. The scholars who were drinking on the shore were frightened and ran away in a sorry state. Puff! In the sky, Longfen spat out a mouthful of blood. His clothes exploded and spider webs appeared on his skin. It was a horrible sight, but he didn't dare to stay any longer. He was already seriously injured. He turned into a stream of light and disappeared into the distance. "Xiaogua, just you wait. I'll see you in the arena the day after tomorrow. I'll take your life then. And that guy called Qin Hao, I'll make sure you die without a burial place." Longfen's curse came from afar, but he had already disappeared in the sky. Only a pair of torn underwear floated down. Chapter 375. Translator, Nioibo Studio Editor. Nioibo Studio qualifiers. Although they had defeated Long Fun, this enmity was huge. If they met in the arena, both sides would fight to the death. No one will be merciful. Later, Qin Hao and the others strolled a few streets, guessing riddles, eating snacks, and having fun. In the end, they returned to the inn to rest. Nalan Li and Yi Shuihan would participate in the Rising Star Competition's qualifiers tomorrow. They had to be in their best condition. Before they parted, Qin Hao took out a bracelet and gave it to Chen Wanqin. He had gotten the bracelet from the High Trading Company's treasury. It was made of the same blue jade as the blue jade hairpin. Chen Wanqin liked it at first sight. It was obvious that Qin Hao had specially prepared it for her. She was so touched that she hung it on her wrist and never left. However, Qin Hao remembered Yi Shuihan's strange behavior today. Young master Yi didn't show his true colors. He had resolved Long Fun's 5-star Mortal Saint attack with one move. He was only a 2-star primary grandmaster. Warehouse he has affinity with the water element is very high. Even I have never heard of it. In the inn, Qin Hao was lying on the bed, still thinking about the scene during the day. It was obvious that Yi Shuihan was the one who had resolved the Soaring Wave's power. He could almost guess that there must be some kind of seal or shackle on Yi Shuihan. I'll find time to study it after the competition. Nodding, Qin Hao closed his eyes and rested. Right now, he had to do well in the competition. This competition was related to Qin Hao's qualification to enter the Medicine Valley. Only by entering the Medicine Valley would he have a chance to find the herbs to awaken his Dan Xian. It was very important to him. The next day, the Luo Shui Square in the Imperial City District was packed with people, a black mass as far as the eye could see. Because today was the day of the Rising Star competition, the Luo Shui Square was the venue. It occupied a large area. Opposite was the Imperial Palace, where the highest authority of the Luo Shui Empire lived. The venue in front of the Imperial Palace was naturally grand and magnificent. However, most of the participants today were small sects and hermits, so most of the audience were commoners. In the eyes of the ministers of the Luo Shui Empire, if the students of the 4 academies did not participate, there was nothing to see. However, it had to be said that even the small sects and some hermits were fighting in full swing, making the commoners addicted to watching. The audition lasted for 2 days. On the second day, Qin Hao was present to watch the competition. What was worth celebrating was that Yi Shuihan and Nalan Li had both entered the top 20. Yi Shuihan was ranked 15th. Nalan Li was ranked 8th. Of course, this was only the ranking of the commoner arena. Compared to the geniuses of the 4 great academies, it was not enough. Even so, Qin Hao was still very surprised. Nalan Li had the strength of a 4-star Yuan ancestor and was proficient in the Tao of spirit arrays. It was reasonable for her to enter the 8th place. Yi Shuihan was ranked 15th and had quite a bit of strength. In fact, he did not even fight at all. His opponents directly admitted defeat. Because Yi Shuihan was wearing 5 sets of armor, his body was like copper skin and iron bones, smelly and hard like a rock in a cesspool. After fighting for a long time, the contestants' hands were swollen, but Yi Shuihan did not lose a single hair. They had no choice but to give up. This scene became a joke in the arena. However, Yi Shuihan could only stop at the 15th place. It was not until the 3rd day that the Rising Star competition officially began. All the contestants from the 4 academies were present. To be precise, except for the 1st place, everyone was present. For example, Tian Boiwang from the Starry Moon Academy, Long Fun from the Mad Dragon Academy, and Wang Gui from the Shifang Academy were all seeded contestants who would only appear in the finals. It meant that they were superior to others. Because they were too strong, they would not compete with cats and dogs, as it would be beneath their dignity. Therefore, the current competition was only the preliminary round. All the geniuses of the Scarlet Sun Academy, muster up all your strength and give them a good beating. Try to get into the top 10. Although it's impossible, even if we lose, we must lose with dignity. In the arena, Dean Ouyang began an impassioned speech in front of the top 10 disciples of the Earth leaderboard, his saliva flying everywhere. The competition was about to begin. As the dean, he had to encourage his disciples. However, his encouragement discouraged them. The competition had not yet started, but the dean had already admitted defeat. Wasn't this a blow to their morale? As everyone can see, apart from the 4 academies, there are also many small sects in today's preliminaries. There is no lack of outstanding contestants among them. Of course, those bastards can't compare to our 4 academies, so be proud. As long as you enter the top 10, you will have contributed greatly to our academy. The rewards will be generous. Ouyang Hong paused and wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth with his sleeve. He straightened his face and continued. In addition to the rewards from the academy, in fact, the royal family will also reward the top 10 contestants. Therefore, this time, it depends on the 2 of you. Strive to get a good ranking. He pointed at Qin Hao and Lin Feng. The 2 of them were the most capable of entering the top 10. Of course, it also depended on luck. As for the others, in Ouyang Hong's eyes, they were just cannon fodder. Therefore, at this moment, he was full of expectations for Qin Hao and Lin Feng, especially for Qin Hao. "We will do our best," said Lin Feng with difficulty. He could only depend on the will of the heavens. Ouyang Hong nodded and looked at Qin Hao with a guilty expression. "Little Hao, I'll have to trouble you today. You have to participate in the preliminary round." The others were stunned and looked at each other. Didn't they say that the top contestants of the 4 academies only needed to participate in the finals? Why did the top contestant of Qiyang University have to participate in such a low-class preliminary round? Because our Qiyang University is ranked the lowest. We are vaguely excluded by the other 3 academies. Therefore, they don't recognize us as the top contestant. At this point, Ouyang Hong's face was full of helplessness and anger. Qiyang University used to be the strongest. However, it gradually deteriorated and became worse year by year. It was to the extent that even the right to guard the Medicine Valley was almost taken away. "It's okay," Qin Hao said calmly. He did not mind at all. He would use his strength to tell everyone that the top contestant of Qiyang University was definitely not inferior to the other 3 academies. Try to look impressive by puffing himself up at his own cost. Beside him, Lao Yuanliang sneered sarcastically. He was also very happy. Qin Hao was also the top contestant of the 4 academies, but his treatment was far worse than Long Fun's. It was really ridiculous. Actually, it's all my fault. I didn't protect the dignity of the top contestant of Qiyang University. Lin Feng secretly clenched his fists. He was extremely ashamed and humiliated. If he was strong enough, Qiyang University would not be looked down upon by others. It would also not cause Qin Hao to be looked down upon even after he took over. "Let's go." Ouyang Hong sighed and led everyone into the arena. In the arena, there was a tall platform. It was the Luo Shui platform. This platform had a radius of 100 meters. The space was large enough for the contestants to use their skills freely. Moreover, there was an array that was incomparably sturdy. It was personally reinforced by the top array master of Western Liang hundreds of years ago. Chapter 376. The champion's reward. There were 8 other viewing platforms around the Luo Shui stage. 4 of them were occupied by the 4 great academies. Of the remaining 4, 2 were prepared for the small sects and clans. One of the other 2 was for the major families in the imperial city, and the other was for the nobles and ministers. In other words, there were no commoners present today. All of them were occupied by the highest echelons of the Luo Shui Empire. Even so, there were no empty seats. The 8 viewing platforms were arranged in the shape of the 8 trigrams, with the Luo Shui stage in the middle. The area was not small, and each platform could accommodate a few hundred people. Moreover, their platforms were much higher than the Luo Shui stage to make it easier for the audience to watch. In fact, it was similar to the gladiator arena. Under the lead of Ouyang Hong, Qin Hao and the others took their seats at the Qiyang viewing platform. At this moment, the 2 tables nearby were already filled with a dense crowd of people. Even the gaps between the seats were filled with people. On the other hand, the Scarlet Sun Academy side seemed to be very deserted. There were only about 20 or so people there, and it seemed to be very empty, forming a stark contrast with the other spectator stands. In fact, once the competition started, once Qin Hao and the other contestants left, only Ouyang Hong and a few elders would be left in Qiyang University's viewing platform. it would undoubtedly become even more quiet. Next, a thin old man wearing an official's uniform stepped onto the Luo Shui stage, which also indicated that this year's Rising Star qualifier had officially begun. Although this old man's appearance was not impressive, his mouth was especially big. He first coughed twice, put on a dignified expression, and introduced the guests on the 8 viewing platforms in an official's tone. Then, he went straight to the main topic. Greetings, military leaders, dukes, marquises, deans, ladies and gentlemen, as well as contestants. I am your good friend, Big Mouth Lee, the 3rd grade manager of the Imperial Palace's internal affairs. It is my honor to host this year's Rising Star competition. Li Dazue seemed very excited. He deliberately paused here and looked around as if he was waiting for something. Good, great. Warm applause. Pa pa pa. Immediately, thunderous applause sounded from all directions, bombarding Big Mouth Lee on the Luo Shui stage in the center. Big Mouth Lee smiled and nodded, revealing an expression of enjoyment. He raised his hands high and said, "Thank you for everyone's love." Then, as you can see, the strongest academy in this year's new star competition has increased from the previous year's 40 to more than 100 people. Therefore, today is different from the rest. It is undoubtedly the grandest competition in the history of the competition. All right, well said. Warm applause. Pa pa pa, another round of applause sounded. But in fact, all the spectators had already cursed Li Dajo's entire family in their hearts. Who the hell wants to listen to you? Hurry up and start the competition. However, Big Mouth Lee didn't notice it at all. He still looked like he was enjoying it. He cleared his throat and continued. Of course, since this competition is the grandest one, the rewards are also unprecedentedly rich. In addition to 200,000 medium-grade mysterious crystals and 100,000 upper-grade mysterious crystals, the champion will also receive a medium-grade Earth rank cultivation method and a celestial spirit pearl. Please express our gratitude to our benevolent Emperor Long Yuan. At this point, Big Mouth Lee turned around and bowed deeply to the palace behind him. In an instant, the entire Luo Shui square was in an uproar. A total of 300,000 mysterious crystals. Oh my god! The worst among them were medium-grade mysterious crystals. Ordinary disciples of the outer yard of the 4 academies could only receive 1 to 2 lower-grade mysterious crystals per month. Only outstanding disciples could receive more than 10. The champion's reward was as high as 300,000 mysterious crystals of medium grade and above. It could be seen that Yilong Yuan's reward was very rich. This was only secondary. The most important thing was the Celestial Spirit Pearl. It was said that as long as one carried the Celestial Spirit Pearl with him, it could help a cultivator absorb the spiritual chi of heaven and earth and speed up his cultivation. Even if a King Stage expert wore this pearl, their cultivation speed would increase by 1/10. Just thinking about it made people excited. Moreover, this pearl could also be refined into a pill and consumed directly. As for the effect after refining, it had to be considered according to the alchemist technique. At the very least, it could allow a mortal saint to advance to the peak of the profound sage realm, or even directly enter the heaven sage realm, only one step away from becoming a master. Big Mouth Lee had undoubtedly spread a pot of aphrodisiac to more than 100 contestants, causing all the contestants' eyes to shine. They could not help but breathe quickly, and their hearts beat wildly. Some contestants had even secretly clenched their fists, and the spiritual chi around their bodies fluctuated uncontrollably. Their faces were full of fighting spirit, and they could not wait to get on the Luo Shui platform to show their strength. This reward also made Qin Hao's heart beat fiercely. It was too tempting. If he could get this pearl and refine it, it would undoubtedly greatly increase Qin Hao's chances of survival in the Medicine Valley after a year. The Medicine Valley was extremely dangerous, and once he stepped into the Heaven Sage realm, he would have the capital to go to the Daoyao Empire in the northern border to find Shaohan. Back then, he had made an agreement with Gongsun Changxing that after 5 years, Qin Hao would at least have the strength of a Heaven Sage. Only in this way could he prove that he was more talented than Duan Ziju, and that he was more qualified to be with Xiao Han. After a long time, the commotion in the Luo Shui square gradually calmed down, and Big Mouthly finished announcing the remaining rewards one by one. The top 3 would receive 200,000 mid-grade Xian crystals and 2 bottles of holy condensation water from the royal family. Holy condensation water could increase the strength of Saint. The top 5 would receive 100,000 mid-grade Xian crystals and a bottle of holy condensation water. The top 10 would only receive 50,000 low-grade Xian crystals. Although these rewards were also very generous, they were obviously worlds apart from the champions. That heavenly spirit pearl alone was enough to create a king-level expert. Over 100 contestants from the Exploding Heavens Academy. Please enter the arena, receive your number plates, and draw lots to choose your opponent for the first round. Big Mouthly stood on the Luo Shui platform and shouted. After the speech, the contestants from the 4 academies and the small sects left the viewing platform eagerly and stepped into the main arena. These dazzling figures also attracted the attention of the spectators on the 8 viewing platforms. Those who stood on the Luo Shui platform were the strongest of the younger generation in the entire Luo Shui Empire. It was the place where the real geniuses gathered. Here, a new legend would be born. Throughout history, there were many influential figures who had stirred up the Western Liang continent. They had all walked out of the Luo River platform and composed a legendary song in the Divine Wilderness continent that was praised by later generations. After receiving their number plates, over 100 contestants sat down in their seats below the platform. Of course, the contestant who drew number 1 was excluded. In fact, the first round of a New Star competition was similar to the 4 Kingdom martial arts competition. Contestant number 1 would fight against the last contestant, and so on. Contestant number 1 was from a small sect and ranked 45th in the commoner selection. However, he was a little unlucky because the 128th contestant was from the Starry Moon Academy, one of the 4 academies. He was ranked 3rd on the Earth list of the Starry Moon Academy and was stronger than Chun Wanqin. Chapter 377. Humiliation. The contestant from Star Moon Academy, whose name was Bao Datong, casually waved his hand as soon as he stepped onto the stage. A surge of origin chi surged and blasted contestant number 1 off the stage. In the blink of an eye, the first round ended. Bao Datong won with overwhelming strength. In the end, he casually clapped his hands and returned to the winning area with a smile, preparing for the next match. As for the losers, they would be eliminated from the competition. Next, according to the order, contestant number 2 stepped onto the stage and fought contestant number 127. The 2 of them were evenly matched in terms of strength. They were both 8-star Yuan ancestors and were locked in a fierce battle. Actually, their realms were still considered below average among all the contestants. Even Qin Hao, who was 1 star higher than them, belonged to the lowest of the upper realms. Of course, this was referring to the realm and not the actual battle prowess. After a tough battle, contestant number 2 and number 127 both brought out their special skills. Luo Shui shone brightly on the stage. Contestant 127 was a little careless and was sent flying by his opponent, losing the qualification to continue the competition. Contestant number 2's condition wasn't any better. Although he was lucky enough to win, he was lying on the stage with bruises all over his body. It looked like both of them had suffered losses, and he had obviously lost the ability to continue fighting. After 2 rounds, contestant number 3 stepped onto the stage. As soon as he went on stage, it caused a stir. The person fighting was Lao Yuan Liang, ranked 3rd on the Earth leaderboard from the Scarlet Sun Outer Court. Lao Yuan Liang had some fame among the younger generation of the 4 great academies. Unfortunately, the others did not know that he had fallen from 3rd place to 4th place. However, this didn't stop the crowd from thinking that Lao Yuan Liang would definitely win this round, even if Chiang University was weaker than the other 3 universities. After all, Lao Yuan Liang was ranked 3rd on the terrestrial rankings. In fact, Lao Yuanliang had already spoken in a flirtatious manner. He took out the long spear from his back and shouted confidently, "Lao Yuanliang, this is a strike that can penetrate the chaotic world. Who dares to fight me to the death?" Below the stage, Qin Hao shook his head. Couldn't Lao Yuanliang change his words? I was wondering which Tom, Dick, and Harry I would meet. So it's you. A mocking voice sounded out, and it was mixed with undisguised sarcasm. A golden-robed young man with an extraordinary aura slowly stepped forward. There was a dragon head embroidered on his chest. When Lao Yuanliang saw this person, his expression changed drastically. His confidence was swept away, and he couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. Below the stage, there was also a burst of gasps. This was because the golden-robed youth who had ascended the stage was a reputable figure in the outer courtyard of the Wild Dragon Academy. Feng Qingyang, ranked 3rd on the Earth ranking. Not only was Feng Qingyang handsome, but his strength was also extremely high. He was only below Xiaogua and Long Fun. In an instant, this battle that had yet to begin ignited everyone's passion. Qiyang ranked 3rd against Kuang Long ranked 3rd. It was a rare show. Unfortunately, even though they were both ranked 3rd, Lao Yuanliang was not Feng Qingyang's match at all. Feng Qingyang was a 4-star mortal saint, which was the same cultivation level as Xiaogua. But because he did not have a source spirit, his true battle strength was far from being comparable to Xiaogua's. Even so, defeating a 1-star mortal saint Lao Yuanliang was a piece of cake. "Ha! Ouyang Hong, look at your academy's disciple. He's worse than trash. His legs are already trembling before the battle. Did you send him out to make a fool of himself? Listen to my advice and quickly admit defeat. Otherwise, if my disciple Qingyang makes a move, Lao Yuanliang will either die or be crippled." On the spectator stand, Dean Liu of the Wild Dragon Academy said to Ouyang Hong with a face full of contempt. The Wild Dragon Academy's platform was right next to the Scarlet Sun Academy's, so his words could be heard very clearly, and the people around him could hear them clearly. It was especially jarring to the ears. Although the Wild Dragon Academy was not like the 10 Directions Academy and Qiyang University's sworn enemy, it was still a matter of pride for one's disciple to be stronger than others. Now that there was a good opportunity to mock Ouyang Hong, Dean Liu naturally would not let it go. After he finished speaking, he slapped his thigh and laughed. In response, Ouyang Hong secretly clenched his fists. No matter how angry he was, he could only endure it for now. He hoped that Lao Yuanliang would fight back and lose with dignity. He hoped that Lao Yuanliang would not be defeated in a single move. Unfortunately, Ouyang Hong's calculations were wrong. Not to mention losing with dignity, Lao Yuanliang didn't even dare to make a move. He didn't even care about his face. He threw away the spear in his hand and knelt in front of Feng Qingyang, begging, "I admit defeat. I beg senior brother Qingyang to let me go." What? The crowd on the 8 spectator stand stood at the same time, dumbfounded. Their hearts were filled with shock. The 3rd-ranked disciple of Qingyang University knelt to the 3rd-ranked disciple of the Wild Dragon Academy. After a long time, the crowd finally reacted and pointed at Lao Yuanliang on the stage. The disciples of Qiyang University were too spineless. They were like bedbugs that tainted the sacred competition. How shameful! Lin Feng lowered his head in shame, feeling too ashamed to face anyone. The Earth-ranking disciple, sitting beside him, also lowered his head. Lao Yuanliang was a spear saint, but he actually knelt to a disciple of the Wild Dragon Academy. However, it was understandable. If he did not admit defeat, it was very likely that he would lose his life. If it were them, they would not have the courage to fight with Feng Qingyang. Even Lin Feng was not qualified. At this moment, the other disciples looked at Qin Hao. They thought that Qin Hao was not that strong. Qiyang was the strongest, but he was not as strong as the 3rd place of the Wild Dragon Academy. Qin Hao did not care about this. Instead, he sneered at Lao Yuanliang's ignorance. Would the other party let you go if you kowtowed and begged? You think too much. The competition had just begun, and it was the best time to establish their prestige. The disciples of the Wild Dragon Academy would not give up so easily. In reality, it was just as Qin Hao had expected. What did you say? I didn't hear you clearly. Sorry, I've been a little hard of hearing lately. Did you just say that you will kowtow to me 3 times? Please crawl closer and say it again while kneeling in front of me. Feng Qingyang bent down and stretched his ear over, pretending that he did not hear clearly. However, the corners of his mouth slowly curled up. Creak! Lao Yuanliang clenched his fists, and his face twisted. He had already knelt down and admitted defeat, but the other party was still unwilling to let him go. He wanted him to crawl under his pants and kowtow 3 times before the other party was willing to let him go. Lao Yuanliang was once the 3rd place of the Earth leaderboard. When had he ever suffered such humiliation? Intense anger burned in his eyes, but this anger disappeared in the blink of an eye. In front of powerful strength, he had no choice. Therefore, he crawled under Feng Qingyang's feet like a dog and banged his head on the ground 3 times. He smiled apologetically and said, "Senior brother Qingyang, I've lost. I admit defeat." This scene made the disciples of the Qiyang Academy feel even more ashamed. Ouyang Hong was so angry that he wanted to jump on the stage and slap Lao Yuanliang to death. On the other hand, Dean Liu of the Wild Dragon Academy raised his head and laughed loudly. What did you say? I still didn't hear you clearly. You said you want to crawl under my pants, right? Oh, sorry. Forgive me for being a little hard of hearing recently. Feng Qingyang was so proud that he almost laughed out loud. Lao Yuanliang was really a coward. Chapter 378. Qin Hao enters the stage in an instant. The veins on Lao Yuanliang's face were crawling with rage. The volcano in his heart could no longer be suppressed and was about to erupt. If he had a knife in his hand right now, he would have chopped Feng Qingyang into meat paste. His teeth were also clenched so hard that they made cracking sounds. You dare to glare at me? I've already given you face by letting you crawl under my crotch. Are you still not happy? Feng Qingyang was very dissatisfied and felt that his dignity was being challenged. As he spoke, a ball of orange energy condensed in his palm and pressed down on Lao Yuanliang's head. Lao Yuanliang was shocked and did not dare to resist. His anger immediately turned into a smile as he forced a smile and said, "Happy, I'm very happy. Actually, it's my honor to crawl under senior brother Qingyang's crotch." After he finished speaking, he stretched his head towards Feng Qingyang's spread legs. "Ha ha, this cowardly person with no dignity. Everyone come and take a look. This is the trash of Qiyang University. The school is trash, and the disciples are also trash. Here, I would like to remind all the junior brothers and sisters of Qiyang University to withdraw from school and transfer to our Kuanglong Academy." Feng Qingyang laughed arrogantly without restraint. At the same time, he nodded towards Dean Liu. Dean Liu immediately made a good gesture, as if to tell the other party that he would reward him. "You've gone too far." Ouyang Hong was so angry that he slammed the table and stood up. He was so angry that his beard was flying and his eyes were red. "Dean Ouyang, please calm down. It's just children fooling around. Qingyang has no intention of looking down on your school. In fact, even if I look down on you, it's because you're too incompetent." "Ha ha! Close the door as soon as possible." Dean Liu was not afraid of Ouyang Hong at all. They were both saint-level experts. Who was afraid of who? If I had known, I wouldn't have entered Qiyang University. How will we face people in the future? How will we face our parents? 3rd on the Earth leaderboard crawling under someone else's crotch. Trash. Oh, I forgot. Is Lao Yuanliang 3rd on the Earth leaderboard now? He was surpassed by Qin Hao. So what? Qin Hao can't even compare to one of Feng Qingyang's fingers, let alone Long Fun, who is even more powerful than Feng Qingyang. Below the stage, a group of Qiyang University students said with righteous indignation, "Today was a great humiliation." Qin Hao furrowed his brows. Lao Yuanliang crawled into someone else's crotch. What does that have to do with me? Did I ask him to do that? But it had to be said that the people from Mad Dragon Academy were indeed arrogant, especially Long Fun. The flames of war flashed across his eyes. Let me take back the dignity that the Academy has lost. However, the humiliation on the stage did not stop because of this. Almost as soon as Lao Yuanliang stuck his head out, Feng Qingyang kicked him in the mouth and mercilessly kicked him off the Luo Shui stage. Lao Yuanliang's nose was bruised and his face was swollen. Feng Qingyang pouted proudly. Standing high up on the stage, he pointed at Qin Hao and the others and said, "You bunch of trash, you want to crawl into my crotch? Sorry, you're not qualified." Wonderful, wonderful, huh? In the distance, Dean Lu's laughter sounded again. His laughter was deep and vigorous, as if it could pierce through the sky and spread throughout the entire arena. Today, Mad Dragon Academy's first battle was beautiful. On the other hand, except for Qin Hao, Qiyang University students were all dejected. They were like a group of defeated soldiers without any fighting spirit. Lao Yunliang's battle had undoubtedly poured a bucket of cold water on their fiery hearts. In addition, even Ouyang Hong was not optimistic about this battle. Therefore, these Earth Leaderboard disciples instantly felt that they had lost their sense of existence. They were just a group of clowns on the Luo Shui stage. Lao Yuanliang had also lost all his face. He covered his face and sat below the stage, not saying a word. As the former third place on the Earth Leaderboard, he did not even make it to the semifinals. He was eliminated in the first round of the preliminaries. This shadow would probably stay in his heart for the rest of his life. On the stage, Feng Qingyang had just finished showing off in front of Qiyang University students and was about to step down. Suddenly, he noticed that someone dared to look at him directly. Without a doubt, the person who was looking at him directly was Qin Hao. At this moment, everyone, including Lin Feng, had already lowered their heads in shame. Only Qin Hao's expression did not change. It was especially abrupt. "What are you looking at? If you're not convinced, then teach me a lesson. If you have the ability to beat me down, I'm also willing to crawl into your crotch. Unfortunately, you are also a trash." Feng Qingyang waved a finger in front of Qin Hao. He did not put him in his eyes at all. Then he walked down the stage with his head held high. "Crawl into my crotch? Sorry, you are not worthy." In response, Qin Hao chuckled and said in a low voice. He used the other party's words to return the favor. However, Feng Qingyang was too far away to hear it. However, Lin Feng and Lao Yuanliang, who were next to him, heard it. Lin Feng revealed an expression of disbelief. Everyone's mood plummeted. How could Qin Hao dare to speak so arrogantly? What are you so arrogant for? If you have the ability, go beat up the people from the Wild Dragon Academy, and I will acknowledge you as my father. Unfortunately, I am afraid you do not even have the courage to crawl into Feng Qingyang's crotch. Unlike me, who has the guts to crawl into it. If it were you, you would have peed your pants long ago. Lao Yuanliang looked at Qin Hao with disdain, venting all the anger in his heart. It seemed that his enemy was not Feng Qingyang, but Qin Hao. This made Qin Hao feel that it was ridiculous. He did not even have time to rebuke the other party. At this moment, he was interrupted by Big Mouth Lee on the stage, because the fourth round had begun. Let's welcome contestant number 4, the number 1 of the Scarlet Sun Outer Court, student Qin Hao, onto the stage. F***CK. It's my turn. Qin Hao forgot that he was standing behind Lao Yuanliang when he received the number plate. This fourth round was also Qin Hao's match. Tidying up his clothes, Qin Hao could not be bothered to look at Lao Yuanliang again. He strode forward. "It's your turn to embarrass yourself. You better pray that you don't meet the people from the Wild Dragon Academy. Otherwise, prepare to crawl into their crotch like me." Lao Yuanliang's mocking and ridiculing voice rang out behind him. He seemed to be very excited. It was obvious that he could not wait to see Qin Hao make a fool of himself. F***CK. Another piece of trash from Qiyang University is here. No, it might not be a piece of trash this time. Didn't Manager Li just say that Qin Hao is the number 1 on the Scarlet Sun Earth leaderboard? What? When did the number 1 on the Scarlet Sun Earth leaderboard change? Wasn't it Lin Feng in the past? Immediately, the disciples and the spectator stands discussed animatedly. The elders also whispered to each other. In reality, they did not know that Qin Hao had replaced Lin Feng as the number one in Qian University. However, their hearts were filled with anticipation. To be able to defeat Lin Feng, the contestant called Qin Hao should not be weak. He should be at least a 3-star mortal saint. Moreover, there should not be any embarrassing incidents like crawling into someone's crotch this time. If not, the heavens must be blind. However, sometimes the will of the heavens was just so coincidental. When luck came, it could not be stopped. Qin Hao's appearance had already piqued the interest of the crowd. They could not wait to see his strength. Next, something even more exciting happened. Let's welcome number 125 contestant, the number 4 on the Earth leaderboard from the Wild Dragon Academy, Miss Nianyu. Li Dazui shouted. Instantly, the crowd erupted. It was Qian University versus Wild Dragon Academy again. Moreover, Qin Hao's opponent was the number 4 on the Earth leaderboard, and it was a girl. Chapter 379. Not as good as the auntie on the street accompanied by a thunderous roar. A young girl ascended the Luo water platform and stood across from Qin Hao. She wore a light green dress and had a graceful figure. Her eyebrows were curved like willow leaves, and she looked like a painting. She had an arrogant expression on her face. She was indeed a beauty. Her unique, cold, and aloof charm instantly captured the hearts of everyone below. They quietly wondered how anyone could bear to attack such a beauty. If they were to face this woman, it was likely that they would directly admit defeat. In fact, as soon as Nianyu stepped onto the stage, the Wild Dragon Academy's spectator stands erupted into thunderous cheers. Nianyu was extremely popular in the Wild Dragon Academy. She was publicly acknowledged as the number 1 goddess of the Outer Academy. She was also the personal disciple of the second elder. More importantly, she was the fiancée of Feng Qingyang, who was ranked 3rd on the Earth leaderboard. She was the center of attention. Cough, cough. Qian University's performance just now was indeed unsatisfactory. Contestant Qin Hao, don't feel too much pressure. You can defeat Lin Feng with the strength of a 9-star Yuan ancestor. You must have some outstanding points. You must have some confidence in yourself. Big Mouth Li encouraged and adjusted the atmosphere of the arena. Then, he retreated and left the stage for the two of them. Ha! 9-star Yuan ancestor? The number 1 in the Qian Outer Academy is only a 9-star Yuan ancestor? Did I hear wrong? That guy called Qin Hao is really unlucky to meet Senior Sister Nianyu. Senior Sister Nianyu is a peak 3-star mortal saint. She's only slightly weaker than Senior Brother Qingyang. I wonder how Qin Hao defeated Lin Feng. It's most likely that Lin Feng went easy on him. Unfortunately, he won't be so lucky in Senior Sister Nianyu's hands. In my opinion, this guy won't be able to take 2 moves from Senior Sister Nianyu. 2 moves? You think too highly of him. Half a move at most, or a glare from Senior Sister Nianyu. And Qin Hao will be scared witless. The Wild Dragon Academy's disciples were in full swing as they discussed. Among them, Long Sanjin secretly clenched his fists. His expression was cold, but he felt extremely satisfied. After being beaten by Qin Hao in Luoshui Lake, retribution finally came. Indeed, it doesn't even need to make a move to defeat that kid called Qin Hao. She only needs to blow a breath of air. A rather confident voice sounded. Everyone turned their heads at the same time. The one who spoke was a white-haired old man. He was the second elder of the Kuang Long Outer Court. As Nianyu's master, he had absolute confidence in his disciple. Nianyu had cultivated his awesome cultivation technique and was abnormally powerful. If the opponent did not have the strength of a 4-star mortal saint, he would not be Nianyu's match at all. In fact, even Nianyu's fiancé, Feng Qingyang, had to use all his strength to barely defeat Nianyu. On the other hand, Qin Hao, a mere 9-star primal ancestor, was clearly here to give away points. Dean Ouyang, you'd better get your trash disciple to step down quickly. Otherwise, if Nianyu were to use a little more force, he would be finished. If the number one person in the Scarlet Sun Outer Court is beaten to death by our fourth-place disciple, we would lose face if news of this were spread. Haha. Dean Liu of the Kuanglong Academy, who was sitting in the front row, spoke. He really did not expect that Feng Qingyang would have another great victory after a good start. Moreover, there would be no suspense. However, this time was different from before. Ouyang Hong was not angry at all. In fact, he even had a calm expression on his face. Dean Liu, bragging once is enough. If you brag twice, you'll burst your balls. It's still unknown who will win. Dean Liu was stunned. Doubts arose in his heart as he frowned. He had never seen Ouyang Hong so confident in his own student. I hope Qin Hao's strength is as strong as your words. If not, once your word defeats him, don't cry your eyes out, Dean Ouyang. Dean Liu recovered his arrogance and sighed, unwilling to give in. In response, Ouyang Hong ignored him. Instead, he looked at the Luo Shui stage. Nianyu was stronger than Lin Feng. However, he also remembered clearly that when Qin Hao fought with Lin Feng, he seemed to have held back. Even if he lost in the end, he would never be like Lao Yuanliang, shamelessly crawling into someone else's crotch. Moreover, whether Nianyu allowed him to crawl or not was another matter. After all, she was a woman. On the stage, Luo Shui saw that his opponent was from Qian University. The arrogant Nianyu raised her chin even higher. Her entire person was like a phoenix sitting on a branch. You scram. She spoke coldly and pointed at Qin Hao's nose. She was too lazy to look him in the eye. You want me to scram? Qin Hao was already in a battle stance. He subconsciously raised his eyebrows. Wasn't this woman, named Nianyu, a little too confident? Seeing that she was a woman, he originally wanted to leave her some face and let her leave with a magnificent defeat. However, this woman looked down on him and told him to scram. Not only was she overconfident, but she was also quite narcissistic. Suddenly, Qin Hao felt like he was facing the female servant named Yao Chan in the High Family Trading Company again. Didn't you hear me clearly? I told you to scram. Do you want my autograph? Seeing that Qin Hao did not leave, Nianyu was slightly angered. Perhaps he was lusting after her beauty? As she spoke, Nianyu's face was filled with disdain as she said, "Stop dreaming. I'll never give my signature to a piece of trash from the Scarlet Sun Academy. If I were to give it, I'd only give it to a junior brother from the Wild Dragon Academy. No matter how much you admire me and want to marry me every night, in my eyes, you're actually just a piece of sh*t. Haha. Senior sister is mighty and domineering." The Kuanglong disciples in the distance clapped and cheered. Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Woman, don't think that just because you have some beauty, everyone will praise you. A woman's courage should be respected on the stage. However, in my eyes, stupid women are not even comparable to Annies on the streets. Qin Hao said lightly. These words immediately caused an uproar in the arena. Good fellow, did this kid get kicked in the head by a donkey? He dares to speak rudely to senior sister Nianyu? He compared senior sister Nianyu to a vegetable auntie, or even worse. He must have eaten a bear's heart and leopard's guts. This is going to be a good show. Senior sister Nianyu will skin him alive. Even if senior sister Nianyu does not make a move, once the competition is over, you will not be able to escape from senior brother Qingyang's hands. Ha! The audacious Qin Hao, what an idiot. He has angered senior brother Qingyang. Amidst the discussions, Feng Qingyang, who was sitting in the victory area, clenched his hands until they were trembling. His eyes were like ice as he looked at Qin Hao on the stage. He swore that he would tear this person into pieces. You! Nianyu angrily pointed at Qin Hao. She had never been looked down upon like this before. Moreover, he was publicly acknowledged as a piece of trash from Qian University. In front of tens of thousands of people in this Luo Shui square, he did not hide his mockery, saying that she was worse than a vegetable auntie. In an instant, Nianyu was so angry that she lost her mind. Good. Qin Hao, right? I admit that I have indeed underestimated you. Chapter 380. A thought flashed through her mind as she came to a realization. She sneered, so that's how it is. You want to attract my attention on purpose so that I will have a good impression of you. Let me tell you, stop dreaming. I want to attract your attention on purpose so that I can have a good impression of you. Even Qin Hao laughed. His face stiffened as he said coldly, make your move. I don't want to talk nonsense with a brainless woman. You dare to call me brainless? Nian Yu's beautiful eyes were about to spit fire. Finally, she stopped talking and made her move. Her body emitted a humid air. Within a 2-meter radius, there were even water droplets falling out of thin air. She cultivated a water technique. After mobilizing her Yuan Qi, she could condense it into rain. It was also the second Elder's high-grade, mystic-level technique. Shadow Rain, Thousand Body, Slash. With a shout, Nian Yu drew her sword and waved it. The rain around her became even more majestic. Gradually, her figure became illusory. 1 turned into 2, 2 turned into 3, and in an instant, 6 identical bodies separated from her body. These figures seemed to be real. When they stood together, it was difficult to tell which one was the real one. This was Nian Yu's signature move. The 6 figures instantly surrounded Qin Hao. Sword light flashed in their hands as their attacks fell at the same time. It was like a sword net that strangled Qin Hao in the center. The Shadow Rain Thousand Body Slash has a total of 9 levels. Yuer has cultivated to the 6th level and can split into 6 clones. Including the original body, there are a total of 7 clones. These 7 clones can all use the power of the Thousand Body Slash. It can make the enemy panic and only passively take a beating. They can't do anything to Nian Yu. If not for the fact that they're stronger than Nian Yu, they won't be able to find a real body. Ha! Qin Hao can die under the Thousand Body Slash. That's enough to be proud of. The second elder spoke at the right time with a smug expression. In his opinion, Qin Hao is so weak that he wasn't worthy of Nian Yu using her signature move. It could be seen that Nian Yu is really angry. Let's see how you block it. Pay the price for your impudence. The moment the sword light fell, the 7 Nian Yes spoke at the same time. They all looked furious. When he made his move, he strengthened his origin energy once more, and the sword Qi became even sharper. It was as if the entire sky was filled with sword shadows. This scene caused Lin Feng and the others to scream involuntarily. Qin Hao is most likely doomed. My boss won't lose. He definitely won't. Come on, brother Hao. Qin Hao. In the distance, Yi Shuaihan and Nalin Li were extremely nervous. Their palms were sweating. Even though Qin Hao had created a series of miracles, facing such a dense sword net, everyone was not confident in their hearts. At this moment, the sword light on the stage had completely engulfed Qin Hao. It tore him into pieces, leaving not even a strand of hair behind. His methods were rather overbearing and ruthless. Everyone was shocked. He was killed in one move, but suddenly, someone realized that there was not even a drop of blood on the stage. WWW, what's going on? Was it an illusion? Watch your head. Following a shriek, the second elder leaped up in fright and hurriedly called out. He was very experienced and could tell at a glance that the sword light that filled the sky was just an illusion. Qin Hao had actually already dodged. It was also at this moment that there was a strong fluctuation in the space above Nian Yu's head. An unparalleled palm force came crashing down like a heavy mountain. What? Nian Yu was alarmed. The 7 figures quickly fled like the wind. Even so, they were still a step too late. Boom! Qin Hao's powerful palm force struck the Luo Shui stage, causing the ground to shake. A 5-finger deep mark was left on the stage. The palm chi rapidly spread and swept towards Nian Yu's clones. Blood trickled from the corners of the 7 figures' mouths. They swayed and were in a sorry state. Heavens, what astonishing speed! What an overbearing palm technique! There was an uproar below the stage. To be able to dodge Nian Yu's 1,000 shadow slash at lightning speed and even cause her to bleed with a single palm strike. Qin Hao's speed was astonishing. His primordial chi was also ridiculously strong. A 9-star essence ancestor had caused a 3-star mortal sage to bleed. It was unbelievable just thinking about it. Phew! Lin Feng, who was sitting below the stage, heaved a sigh of relief. He smiled and shook his head. He had been nervous for nothing. He had fought with Qin Hao before and naturally knew that his essence qi was extremely dense. It was not any weaker than a 3-star mortal sage. In addition to his powerful cultivation technique, his true combat strength was truly terrifying. Nianyu from the Mad Dragon Academy had underestimated her opponent and did not know Qin Hao well. She was clearly at a disadvantage. "You are actually this strong?" Looking at Qin Hao, who was standing on the stage again with a calm expression, Nianyu's face was filled with shock. She could not believe that she had been lightly injured by a 9-star Essence Ancestor's palm force. Then, she was furious and felt extremely humiliated. A 3-star mortal sage was no match for a 9-star Essence Ancestor. "I could be even stronger. You could try if you don't believe me." Qin Hao sneered with a hint of contempt. This made Nianyu feel even more humiliated. She gritted her teeth and said, "Very well. You're qualified to make me use my full strength. Die." With a roar, Nianyu's aura suddenly surged. She did not hold back the strength of a 3-star mortal sage. She even started to drizzle around her. The swords in the hands of the 7 figures also emitted a dazzling light. They were raised above their heads and slashed down heavily. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 7 essence qi slashes blasted toward Qin Hao in the center. Mixed with the majestic rain, the scene was extremely spectacular. In this laughable game, Qin Hao stood with one hand. His interspatial ring flashed, and a silver sword appeared in his hand, emitting dazzling moonlight. Then, his wrist drew a sword flower. The speed was so fast that it was dazzling. It seemed that Qin Hao had struck out hundreds of attacks in an instant. But in fact, he had only struck once. Graceful sword. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. 7 rays of moonlight shot out from Qin Hao's position. There was even a scarlet light flickering in the moonlight. It collided with Nianyu's 7 rays of sword qi. Accompanied by a deafening boom, it easily neutralized the opponent's attack and forced the 7 Nianyus to retreat. On the other hand, Qin Hao looked relaxed. He even used his fingers to brush the hair in front of his forehead. His movements were extremely elegant. Ha ha! Too flirtatious. On the Mad Dragon spectator platform, Siowa could not hide the excitement on his face. He was once again seeing a familiar scene. Back then, his heart had been completely stirred by Qin Hao's flirting. From then on, he had regarded Qin Hao as his boss. They would live and die together and never leave each other. Nianyu pointed at Qin Hao again, gnashing her teeth in anger. At this moment, her hair was a little messy, and her face was twisted into a mess. She was a 3-star mortal sage. She had attacked twice in a row, but she had not harmed a single hair on 9-star Yuanzong's head. The first strike had caused her to spit out a mouthful of blood. The second strike had even caused Qin Hao's sword qi to cut off a piece of cloth from her body. Chapter 381. Just as she said, she did have a trump card. However, her trump card consumed a lot of energy and could only be used once. She originally planned to use it to fight for the top 10. Qin Hao's primordial qi was so dense that it gave people the pressure of a sage. The silver sword in his hand was also made of extraordinary materials. Nianyu judged that it was at least a high-grade weapon. It was also that sword that increased Qin Hao's power again. Therefore, it was a very difficult challenge for Nianyu to win. If both of them were injured, it would be very disadvantageous for her in the next round. How about it? As long as you give up the competition, I can give you some extra compensation. For example, I can give you an autograph and have a meal with you. Nianyu continued to tempt him. She even pretended to be flirtatious and stuck out her proud chest. Gulp! The sound of people swallowing their saliva could be heard from below the stage. The disciples of the various academies were staring with their eyes wide open. They couldn't wait to get the autograph and have a meal with Nianyu. It would be a great honor. Oh, give me an autograph and agree to have a meal with me? Qin Hao pretended to be thinking. He was laughing in his heart. The woman in front of him was too narcissistic. I've given you such a favor. Are you still not satisfied? Don't tell me you want to crawl in my pants? You shameless scum. I won't let you get what you want. Nianyu rebuked angrily. She was very righteous. Suddenly, there was contempt for Qin Hao from below the stage. This kid actually wanted to crawl into Miss Nianyu's pants. He was really lustful. Woman, there should be a limit to your narcissism. Not all men are as bad as you think. You want me to admit defeat? Dream on. Cut the crap. Fight. Qin Hao shouted coldly. He was even more disgusted with the woman in front of him. You don't know what's good for you. You'll regret your stupidity for the rest of your life. Nianyu was really going crazy. She had done Qin Hao a favor, but Qin Hao didn't appreciate it. Nianyu soared into the sky with a towering rage. 7 figures floated in the air. In an instant, the sky changed color. The entire arena was covered in rain. The drizzle around Nianyu immediately turned into a torrential downpour. To be able to force you to use the rainstorm pair sword. Even if this brat Qin Hao dies, it's enough to bring glory to our ancestors. Wild Dragon's second elder sat below the stage, his expression incomparably solemn as he clenched his fists. After this move, victory and defeat would be decided. Without a doubt, the victor was his disciple, Nianyu. The torrential pear blossom sword technique was a low-grade, earth-grade technique. When it was activated, it could temporarily raise a person's realm. In other words, the moment Nianyu made her move, her strength was at the level of a 4-star mortal saint. With 7 4-star mortal saints attacking at the same time, Qin Hao would only survive if the sun rose from the west. However, after this move, Nianyu's Yuan Qi would be drained, and she would not be able to fight for a day. Therefore, she made up her mind. Soon, this move was launched. On the Luo Shui stage, accompanied by Nianyu's furious roar, the 7 sword radiances slashed towards Qin Hao's head. Immediately, the torrential rain that filled the sky shot out like a waterfall of embroidery needles, each flickering with a suffocating sharpness. If he was hit, he would definitely be filled with holes. Qin Hao was merely a 9-star Essence Grandmaster. He would definitely not be able to withstand it. In fact, with Qin Hao's current realm, he really could not withstand it. Nianyu's trump card was indeed powerful. Therefore, he did not hesitate to activate the Golden Bell protection. His left hand formed a seal and stretched to the side. Immediately, a seemingly illusory barrier descended on his body. Accompanied by a series of loud, clanging sounds, countless balls of fire suddenly rose in front of Qin Hao. They were all caused by the torrential pear blossom sword technique shooting at the Golden Bell. Just as the torrential pear blossom sword technique was about to exhaust Nianyu's Yuan Qi. Swoosh! Qin Hao pushed out his right hand, his terrifying Yuan Qi suddenly surging. The silver sword in his hand pierced through the air, instantly traversing 100 meters, heading straight for the heart of one of Nianyu's clones in the southeast. Its speed was unbelievably fast. Moreover, this move was as powerful as thunder and could not be underestimated. Boom! There was a deafening sound. The 100-step flying sword hit Nianyu. A beautiful explosion broke through the air. It was deafening and the scene was quite shocking. When Nianyu was hit, she let out a tragic cry. Countless pieces of her clothes drifted down in the air. The 7 suspended figures immediately gathered into one person, and it was the one Qin Hao had hit. That was her true body. At this moment, Nianyu was already rolling on the stage, looking extremely miserable, especially her originally graceful green dress. After being hit by the 100-step flying sword, many parts of her dress were torn, causing a large part of her skin to be exposed in front of everyone's eyes. This time, she had really lost all face. In the past, Nianyu was a goddess in the eyes of everyone in the Wild Dragon Academy, an inviolable fairy-like existence. Now, her clothes were disheveled and even exposed. At this moment, her face was so angry that it was almost dripping blood. Her eyes were about to pop out. Isn't Qin Hao too ruthless? Aya, don't stop me. I'm going to fight him to the death. I'll definitely beat him until he kneels and avenge our senior sister Nianyu. But then again, senior sister Ninyu's place is really big. It's too white. Below the stage, there was an earth-shattering roar as well as a strong uproar of condemnation. It was a mess. However, these people who were condemning Qin Hao looked as if they could not be forgiven, but their eyes were wide open, afraid that they would miss the opportunity to see Ninyu's body. Their eyes were fixed on every piece of torn clothing, like a swarm of flies lying on it. Especially on Ninyu's chest, they sighed in their hearts. It was Qin Hao who gave them a chance to feast their eyes. They were really grateful to his ancestors. After a long while, Ninyu was too embarrassed to stay any longer. She covered her chest with both hands and ran off the stage. She had already lost. Even if she used her trump card, she still could not hurt Qin Hao at all. It was as if she had seen a ghost. She really did not understand why Qin Hao was so strong, especially the sword that flew out of nowhere. If Ninyu had not activated the protective talisman that the second elder had given her in the past, she might have even fallen under Qin Hao's sword. Even so, that stab of the sword had caused her heart to ache. Tung! Suddenly, an incomparably powerful vitality soared into the sky from the victory area. It was Feng Qingyang who had defeated Lao Yuanliang earlier. He was completely furious. After all, Ninyu was his fiancée. But in front of tens of thousands of people, her clothes were disheveled and her body was seen by everyone in the arena. How was Ninyu going to live in the future? Where would he, Feng Qingyang, put his face? Qin Hao, you're courting death. Feng Qingyang was about to jump onto the stage and kill Qin Hao. Chapter 382. Feng Qingyang, now is not the time for you to make a move. Dean Liu transmitted his voice. Dean Liu naturally hated Qin Hao to the core, but he hadn't lost his rationality. If Feng Qingyang were to make a move now, not only would he not be able to vent Ninyu's anger, but he would also violate the rules of the competition and lose the right to participate. Feng Qingyang was a powerful chess piece in Dean Liu's hands apart from Long Fun and Xiaogua. He couldn't afford any mishaps. Qin Hao, just you wait. I'll make sure you don't even have the chance to crawl under my pants. Below the stage, Feng Qingyang's face trembled as he gritted his teeth and growled. Any time, Qin Hao said coldly. With that, he walked off the stage. Brother Qingyang, you have to avenge me. After Ninyu lost, she threw herself into Feng Qingyang's arms and cried with tears streaming down her face. She looked very wronged. Don't worry. If Qin Hao meets me, I'll make sure he dies a horrible death. Feng Qingyang took out a coat from his sumaru pouch and put it on Ninyu, patting his chest as he promised. Dean Ouyang, your school has produced an amazing talent. Dean Liu said to Ouyang Hong on the Qiang spectator platform next door, deliberately emphasizing the word amazing. SOSO. At least he's a little better than some of you who pretend to be cold, but are actually brainless idiots. Ouyang Hong just smiled faintly. He wasn't like Dean Liu, who would raise his head and howl exaggeratedly once his school's contestant won, afraid that others wouldn't know. But in reality, Ouyang Hong was also very happy in his heart. It was so comfortable that it was killing him. Lao Yuanliang didn't start the battle well, but Qin Hao immediately turned the tables. As expected of the youth that Yao Lao had taken a fancy to, Ouyang Hong felt very lucky. However, Dean Liu couldn't help but feel even angrier when he saw his nonchalant expression. His fists were clenched so tightly that they trembled. Everyone, listen up. Once you encounter the contestants from Qian University, don't show any mercy. Cripple all of them. Let them understand the difference between our Mad Dragon Academy and theirs. Dean Liu's gaze was ferocious as he fiercely ordered the participants of the Wild Dragon Academy. After that, he glared at Ouyang Hong again. As for Qin Hao, he was already sitting in the victory area as the victor, right next to Feng Qingyang. Feng Qingyang was so angry that his face was about to bleed. His enemy was right in front of him, but he couldn't make a move. They could only stare at him helplessly. I have to say, Junior Brother Lao, you found yourself a capable father. With your father's protection in the future, your future will be limitless. Lin Feng said in the waiting area. His words made Lao Yuanliang lower his head in shame, and his head fiercely plunged into his crotch. In his heart, he hated Qin Hao to the extreme. He was almost on par with the first place of the 4 major academies. At this moment, they collectively broke out in a cold sweat for Lin Feng. Lin Feng, don't force yourself. You're now in the top 30. You've already done your best. Just admit defeat. Ouyang Hong hurriedly said nervously. He knew about the friendship between Xiaogua and Qin Hao. If he was facing Qin Hao, it would be fine. Maybe he would be merciful. But Dean Liu had given a death order to heavily attack the disciples of Qiyang University. So Xiaogua definitely didn't dare to disobey his dean. In this battle, he would definitely be merciless. Even if I know I can't beat him, I still want to fight for the glory of the academy. Senior brother Little Gua, sorry for the offense. Resisting the fear in his heart, Lin Feng withstood the pressure and took the long sword from his back. Although the hand holding the sword was trembling, his heart was inexplicably excited. He really wanted to see how strong Xiaogua was. For this, even if he didn't hesitate to sacrifice his life, he had to force the soul of the demon ox body out. This was also Lin Feng's pride as a yuan sure. While speaking, he seemed to have regained some confidence. With the long sword in his hand, his body shook with an extraordinary aura. Rub, rub, rub. Xiaogua couldn't help but take a few steps back. His face instantly turned pale, as if he was injured by Lin Feng's aura. Besides, there was blood on the corner of his mouth. He put his hand on his chest and sighed in amazement. Lin Feng, your sword qi is so strong. No wonder you're a student of Qiyang University. Qiyang University deserves its reputation. I admire you. Wow. There was a commotion below the stage. Even Lin Feng on the stage was shocked. He really didn't expect himself to be so powerful. With just his aura, he made Xiaogua, who was known to be on par with Long Fun, spit out blood. Chapter 383. The scene in front of them was inconceivable. Xiaogua was not that weak. Could it be that his strength had regressed? Qin Hao was also puzzled. A few days ago, everyone had seen Guadi's ability at Luoshui Lake. In all honesty, Lin Feng was no match for Xiaogua. But why was Guadi showing weakness? Little Gua, did you catch a cold again? To be honest, our school's Xiaogua has caught a cold recently, so he fought with his illness. Even if that's the case, Lin Feng can't compete with him. Dean Liu hurriedly explained, giving Xiaogua a way out. His eyes were filled with dissatisfaction. Xiaogua's strength could not have regressed. He could only become stronger. Yet, he openly praised Qiyang University in front of all the higher-ups. Dean Liu's heart was filled with anger. He glared fiercely at Qi Xiaogua, as if warning her. At the same time, he was also a little puzzled. Xiaogua and Lin Feng were not friends. He would not go easy on Lin Feng. Could it be that Lin Feng was Ouyang Hong's trump card? Qiyang University's strongest disciple? That guy named Qin Hao was just a cover? On the stage, Xiaogua ignored Dean Liu's undisguised warning. He rubbed his chest and smiled mischievously. I'm not sick. Lin Feng's sword energy is fierce. It's obvious that Qiyang University is unfathomable. No wonder he was able to exchange 3 moves with my big brother. It's admirable, but I will not lose. After he finished speaking, he resumed his fighting stance and gradually strengthened his ki. Bastard! Dean Liu flew into a rage and slammed his hand on his chair. Xiaogua was a disciple of Mad Dragon. It was one thing for him to disobey the dean's orders, but he also praised Qiyang University again and again. Where would Dean Liu put his face? He had already decided that when he returned, he would definitely punish him severely. Even Xiaogua's master, the great elder of the outer yard, couldn't escape. The spectators in the spectators' stands were not as carefree as Dean Liu. He was very surprised by Xiaogua's high evaluation of Lin Feng. This Lin Feng could actually exchange 3 moves with Xiaogua's elder brother. Xiaoguo was already so powerful, so how powerful was his elder brother? It was simply unimaginably terrifying. What? Xiaoguo's elder brother? How come I didn't know that Xiaoguo has an elder brother? Below, the Wild Dragon Academy's disciples were astonished. In an instant, an uproar spread throughout the entire arena. Xiaoguo possessed the power of bloodline and was proud and arrogant. He didn't even put long fun in his eyes, yet he recognized someone else as his big brother? It was truly amazing, including Lin Feng. They were suddenly stunned, their expressions very serious. He had fought with Xiaoguo's elder brother. He shook his head. He didn't remember knowing anyone else with the surname Qi, not to mention fighting with him. Even I didn't know that senior brother Xiaoguo had an elder brother. But this news is indeed quite shocking. In the victory area, Feng Qingyang sat in his seat and muttered in a low voice. He was well aware of how powerful Xiaoguo was. He knew that he wouldn't be able to withstand a single move from the other party. Even if Long Fun wanted to defeat Xiaoguo, he would have to use all his strength. In an instant, Feng Qingyang was filled with admiration for the elder brother that he spoke of. After all, even Long Fun didn't have the qualifications to make Xiaoguo submit. That elder brother must be a famous big shot. This made Feng Qingyang impatient to get to know him. It would be best if that elder brother could be merciful and teach him a move or two. For Feng Qingyang, he would definitely benefit greatly and take fewer detours in the future. After the competition, I must beg senior brother Xiaoguo to let me meet that elder brother. Feng Qingyang nodded. His eyes were abnormally hot, as if he was worshipping him. Qin Hao, who was sitting next to him, smiled. He shook his head helplessly. In his heart, he cursed Feng Qingyang for being blind. I'm right next to you, but you can't see me. But at this moment, he finally guessed Xiaoguo's thoughts. The other party obviously wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to deliberately lower himself and raise Qin Hao, and even raise Qian University. But his approach wasn't wise. It would undoubtedly offend the dean of Quanglong Academy, making it harder for Xiaoguo to mingle in the school in the future. This also showed how loyal Xiaoguo was to Qin Hao. But Lin Feng's mind wasn't on Xiaoguo's elder brother, but on the competition in front of him. He said solemnly, "Forgive me for forgetting, but I don't remember exchanging blows with senior brother Xiaoguo's elder brother. Since I'm so powerful, you have to be careful." As he spoke, he took a heavy step forward, and the sword qi around him became even more turbulent. Zung, zung, zung. Xiaoguo, who had just gotten into a fighting stance, retreated again, and this time his body swayed even more violently. It seemed that he was shocked by the other party's momentum again. Wow, you're really too powerful. It seems that I have to use my own soul. You're really worthy of being a top student of Qian University. No wonder my elder brother, who's been teaching me cultivation, praised you so much. It's a pity that you're only second on the Qian Earth list, while my elder brother is first on the list. So, next, I'm going to be serious. Otherwise, I'll make my elder brother lose face. You should be proud to be able to force me to use my soul. Boom! Xiaoguo's words didn't stop shocking people to death. His words were like a thunderbolt that shocked the entire arena. It was already surprising that the dignified demon ox body was someone's underling. What was even more surprising was that his martial arts were all taught by his elder brother. Chapter 384. Senior Qin Hao is indeed extraordinary. He even subdued the second place on the Earth leaderboard. He has continuously created miracles in Qian University, from a core disciple who was never acknowledged to a respected senior. Now, he's doing well outside the school. I'm really impressed, the group of disciples said proudly. They were deeply proud of being students of Qian University. On the other hand, Lao Yuanliang felt even more ashamed. He wanted to find a hole to hide in. Even he felt that living was a waste of air. He had embarrassed the school and humiliated his juniors. Qin Hao had one dignity for Qiyang. Not only did he defeat Ninyu, who was the fourth place in the Mad Dragon Academy, but even the second place Xiaogua was trained by Qin Hao. No one would believe it. F***CK. On the other side, Feng Qingyang, who was sitting next to Qin Hao, was shocked. He quickly distanced himself and sat down 3 seats away. The third place in the Mad Dragon Academy was so frightened by Qin Hao that he lost his composure. Fear also spread in his heart. He never thought that Qin Hao would be Xiaogua's big brother. However, Qin Hao only had the strength of a 9-star Yuan zone. Could it be that he was hiding his cultivation level? Feng Qingyang nodded to himself and confirmed his guess. From this moment on, he was also afraid of Qin Hao. He was no longer as arrogant as before. However, he had to avenge Ninyu. Traitor! Dean Lu shouted. He was so angry that he stood up from his seat. The hatred in his eyes was self-evident. Even the armrest of his chair was crushed the moment he stood up. Then, he let out a long sigh of relief. He felt that he had lost his image, especially in front of Ouyang Hong. He could not let the other party look down on him. He said slowly, "Xiaogua, did your cold get worse? Don't forget your identity." There was a hint of viciousness in his words. He hinted at Xiaogua that he should quickly admit his mistake. Otherwise, after the competition ended, there were 100 ways to make it impossible for him to continue living in the Violent Dragon Academy. "You damn old man, what are you shouting for? What's the meaning of your gaze? Trying to scare me? Go eat shit." However, Xiaogua did not bite at all. In his heart, not to mention a mere disciple of the Berserk Dragon School, even if he were to become the dean, it would not be as good as being Qin Hao's brother. What's more, he had long wanted to quit being a disciple of the Wild Dragon Academy. In the past, every time Xiaogua had a dispute with Long Fun in the academy, Old Man Lu would side with the other party. He even punished Xiaogua by deducting the number of mysterious crystals he received. Also, the Great Elder's master didn't treat Xiaogua very well either. The two of them were master and disciple in name, but in reality, they often ordered Xiaogua around. He didn't want this disciple. He had even decided to join Qin Hao after the competition and join Qiyang University. You're pissing me off." Dean Lu's heart was burning with anger, and his palms were trembling uncontrollably. If they weren't in the arena right now, he would definitely kill Xiaogua. "Lu Buru, you're the dean, but you don't have the demeanor of an elder. Little Gua didn't say anything bad about the Wild Dragon Academy. He only praised us. Do you have to threaten him? You old dog, you don't cherish such a well-behaved disciple. If you don't want him, Qiyang University will." Ouyang Hong snorted heavily. He stood up and shouted toward the stage. "Little Qi, are you willing to join Qiyang University? You can reunite with your big brother. Please listen carefully. This old man is not an invitation, but a plea. Also, I intend to take you in as my personal disciple." "Ouyang Hong, I'll F***CK your father's balls." Dean Lu exploded on the spot. He pointed at Ouyang Hong's nose and scolded him from afar. "You're openly trying to poach someone in the middle of a competition. The competition isn't even over yet. F***CK you." However, Xiaogua responded without hesitation. He nodded and said, "It's my honor to be able to join Qiyang University. To be honest, the Wild Dragon Academy misleads the students. I'm often bullied and violent. Also, I don't get the respect I deserve. Thank you, Senior Ouyang. Oh no, thank you, Master, for giving me a chance to choose again." After he finished speaking, he winked at Qin Hao. In fact, as soon as Ouyang Hong finished speaking, Xiaogua saw Qin Hao nod. Since his big brother nodded, he would naturally do as he was told. Qin Hao was doing this for his own good. Today, Xiaogua had already shed all pretense of cordiality with the Wild Dragon Academy. If he didn't leave now, his life would be in danger. In the next second, Xiaogua knelt on the stage and kowtowed 3 times in front of Ouyang Hong. This also indicated that from now on, he was a disciple of Qiyang University. Moreover, his status had been upgraded. It was really a good thing that he had a dean as his master. "Ha ha! Good disciple, fight well. Master will support you. If anyone wants to touch you, they'll be making an enemy of our Qiyang University." Ouyang Hong was incomparably happy. He knew that Xiaogua was a good seedling that was hard to come by. He couldn't ask for more to have such an intelligent disciple. Uffed, Dean Liu raised his head and spat out a mouthful of blood. His vision turned black, and he almost rolled off the stage. The elders were frightened and panicked. He didn't even have time to punish Sayogwa. The other party had already escaped from his control. This scene caused the audience below the stage to sigh. They began to discuss among themselves. Wild Dragon Academy couldn't even keep Sayogwa. It was obvious that there was a problem with the school's spirit. The generals and ministers were considering whether they should transfer their children to another school. If not, their future would be bleak. Lin Feng was stupefied and had a blank expression on his face. In the blink of an eye, Sayogwa had become Qi Yang's disciple. This competition had also become a family battle. Ha! I believe you've already seen through it. I went easy on you for the first two moves. Now, I'm going to be serious. Sayogwa became serious. He was no longer frivolous. His aura suddenly became steady. Terrifying vitality circled around his body, emitting an orange glow. Instantly, Lin Feng felt the pressure double. Under this aura, it was difficult to even take a step forward. It was as if his body had lost all feeling. Thank you, Senior Brother Xiaohua. Lin Feng bowed with difficulty. He finally understood the difference between him and his opponent. In fact, he was filled with gratitude at this moment. After all, he was able to make Sayogwa spit out blood and force him to retreat. He would be proud for the rest of his life. Although it was fake, it was clear that Sayogwa had given Lin Feng enough face. Otherwise, he would have kicked him off the stage. From now on, you'll be the second strongest person in Qi Yang's outer court. I, Lin Feng, am willing to give up my position. However, the competition still needs to be fought. I hope to see Senior Brother's true ability. Please enlighten me. Lin Feng took a deep breath. The long sword in his hand let out a cry. A gust of wind rose around his body. This gust of wind gradually became stronger and finally formed a tornado that soared into the sky. Clang, clang, clang. Their blades collided. He was ready to launch Blade Storm to see how much damage he could cause to Sayogwa. He was unwilling to give up. He must see Sayogwa's power. It would be best if he could force his opponent to use his primordial spirit. However, Lin Feng no longer felt the pressure from before. Instead, he became very relaxed. This was because no matter how they fought, the winner of this competition would always be Qi Yang. Unfortunately, you still don't have the ability to force Guadi to use his primordial spirit. Below the stage, Qin Hao shook his head. Although he knew that Qi Xiaohua's strength was amazing, when he really faced her, she was stronger than he had imagined. Xiaohua was so strong that Lin Feng was not qualified to force him to use his soul. Sayogwa was just Qin Hao's underling. After leaving the stage, Lin Feng had mixed feelings when he passed by Qin Hao. Junior brother Qin Hao used to be slandered and humiliated in the outer court. Now he was standing at the top of the pyramid. From today onwards, he and Qin Hao would be people from two different worlds. Qin Hao's future was the person who would really stir up the Western Yangland. Immediately, Lin Feng was relieved. He smiled with a trace of gratitude and left the arena. In fact, the current competition had already entered the semifinals, and the top 10 were fighting for the qualification. Lin Feng had done his best. The next battle for the top 10 belonged to Qin Hao and Sayogwa. Hee, big brother, I did well, right? Sayogwa smiled as he came to Qin Hao's side and sat down. He had an obedient expression, as if waiting for the other party's praise. At this time, he also felt relieved. He did not need to return to the Wild Dragon Academy anymore, and he did not need to be suppressed by long fun. Not bad, continue to work hard. Qin Hao touched Sayogwa's head, and a trace of admiration flashed in his eyes. In this regard, Sayogwa was like a deflated ball. It seemed that he really had to continue to work hard and not lose face for his big brother. Hiss! Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Seeing the two's friendly behavior, Qin Hao touched Sayogwa's head like a big boss. Sayogwa looked like he had learned something. No one doubted the fact that the two were brothers anymore. So much so that Feng Qingyang, who was 3 seats away, almost had his eyeballs fall to the ground. Even Long Fen did not dare to touch Xiaowa's head, but Qin Hao touched it so naturally. He must have touched it a lot in the past. This person is very troublesome. Feng Qingyang's expression was extremely ugly. The thought of revenge had already retreated in his heart. The competition was still going on. Just like the battle between Xiaowa and Lin Feng, the current contestants were fighting for the top 10. The next few matches were not very exciting, making everyone feel sleepy. It was not until the second genius of Star Moon Academy, Sword Young Master, appeared that the excitement of the audience was restored. This Sword Young Master, as his name suggested, was a person with an extremely high talent in the way of the sword. His position in the Star Moon Academy was extremely high, second only to Tian Buguang. Moreover, it was said that his family was quite ancient and had inherited sword technique from generation to generation. It was said that this person was lucky enough to be apprenticed to the Sword King.